Hello everyone, I'm here with Brandon Morse and Liana Kerzna to talk about The Escapist and Gamergate. Would you like to introduce yourselves? Liana, ladies first.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is my second time on Sargon's stream,
It is.
so it's kind of funny. I go from being a Polygon shill to an escapist bimbo in the span of a few months.
It's
So this is
amazing
going to
how
be
things work,
all.
isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing what a difference 6 months can make,
Uh,
right? But I have to say off the bat, the opinions expressed in the following stream are those of me and not any of my employers. But yeah, I am a writer at MetaLeader.com. I do a show on Canada's Top 20 Countdown called Liana K's Geek Download. And starting in the summer, I will be doing a cosplay video program for The Escapist, as well as some ancillary column work, righty stuff.
mhm.
And the internet is going crazy.
Great. Okay. Brandon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. God, where do I start? I used to be in politics. I've written about culture while I was in politics. I've used to own my own website called Misfit Politics, danced around for a while, ended up at Rare.us, and let's face facts, through Gamergate is the only reason I got recognized. But, now I write for The Escapist. And I also kind of have to say that my thoughts and opinions are my own. I'm a freelancer for The Escapist. I'm not an employee.
Great. Okay. And would you like to give me your opinions on Gamergate and what your involvement has been and whatnot, just for the audience listening?
Gamergate to me is pretty much the most important movement I think I've seen in a while. And I've come from, a kind of libertarian conservative side. So, the Tea Party, which was a big deal for me, this Gamergate is way bigger for me. Not only do I think Tea Party is better than the Tea Party did, it's actually had so much of an effect on the way that businesses do business that it's actually kind of made the world a better place for everybody, I think, not just the gaming
I
industry. I
totally
think it
agree,
set a
man.
precedent. I think it
But
set a precedent for a lot of different people. So it's great that Gamergate came along. I may be in politics, but I've been a gamer for way longer. Gamer is my default setting. So
man, I was exactly the same. I was doing a lot of political stuff and ideological criticism on my channel before Gamergate, and as soon as it came along, I was like, well, of course I'm behind this.
yeah.
Jesus Christ. But yeah, Liana, would you like to tell everyone about your involvement in Gamergate?
I
That's all right.
describe it.
Don't worry about
I,
it.
I describe it as repeated waves of a shit jackhammer coming down on my forehead. If I'm going to be colloquial, but I think I've learned a lot. It's been a great reality check for. I've been a games writer for 10 years, despite what some blogs will tell you that I just suddenly materialized to do an Anita Sarkeesian piece. I've been doing this a long time, and this is the third sort of upheaval I've seen in my career. The first one was the score fixing stuff that eventually became Gertzman Gate. The second one was sort of a cascade thing that was happening in the 5 years leading up to Gamergate. Gamergate to me is sort of the natural point. If you're a student of history at all, these things happen when you have the conditions that we're seeing in video games right now, and I think the Tea Party comparison is extremely apt. I'm in Canada. These things confuse us a lot because we sort of have a middle of the road system halfway between sort of we have the American influence, but then we're a British Commonwealth Parliament system. So a party like the Tea Party doesn't have the same purpose in our system. That being said, obviously we're very affected by what goes on in the U.S. But I have just learned a whole lot through this whole experience, and I'm very grateful for that. I don't feel like it's my role to moralize just because I'm such a walking freak show as far as this thing is concerned. You know, if you look at my I'm libertarian as well, but I move more into the you know, the sort of the liberal side, partially just because of the country I live in. We're like free pot and gay marriage for all, you know, like in Canada.
I think that's definitely like a standard libertarian stance, though, whether right or left. I think.
I feel a lot of conservatives would probably get behind that too.
Yes, yeah. See, I mean, to me, I'm because I've got this libertarian swing. My idea is, if it's not hurting anybody, why do we care if someone does it?
That's exactly exactly. If it's not breaking your arm or taking money out of your wallet, what do you care?
Right. Why do I care what two other consenting adults do behind closed doors?
Yeah, it's not any of our business.
Yeah, and I mean, that's been a staple of sort of Canadian political thought since the 1980s. So where, you know, the whole blame Canada thing is real. I actually put it in a radio segment this week, the whole blame Canada thing. But yeah, I mean, I've met a lot of new people. I've had a lot of great, smart conversations thanks to, you know, just the amount of information that's been flying around thanks to Gamergate. And, you know, my own personal philosophical stuff doesn't permit me to sort of intensely moralize on the whole thing. But philosophically, it's been really, really good, I think, personally, in terms of personal development.
Cool.
You know, if not just being, at the very least, exposed to the dark side of, you know, what is actually being called now fourth wave feminism, believe it or not. But I mean, I think
What's being called fourth wave feminism?
The online. I can send you some articles to it afterwards.
Yeah, do that afterwards rather than
it's not a confirmed term. It's something that people are trying out. You know, what some people would call Tumblr feminism.
I'm well acquainted with that now.
Yeah, I think we're all sort of well acquainted with it. But some people are referring to that as fourth wave, the idea that this has become sort of a performance art almost exclusively online. Because third wave is getting kind of old when you think about it. Third wave kind of really got going in the 90s, and third wave I mean, that's when you know, stuff like, I mean, in Canada, the whole École Polytechnique thing was a big thing, right? And, you know, the 90s were a real moment that way. But that, I mean, that was still third wave. And I mean, the cool thing about third wave is we have this whole intersectional perspective where it's like, no, we can't discount anyone's story. We're sort of discounting everyone's story nowadays on the internet. It's pretty crazy. But it's just been great to me to sort of maintain my perspective, not change my opinions, but go through this sort of trial by fire where I've had them really, really challenged. And I think that's really super important. If you're going to go out there and talk to people, well, there's a time to shut up and listen as well.
Yeah, I think it's unhealthy not to challenge your opinions and not to have them challenged.
Yeah. I completely agree.
It brings you to the echo chamber mentality, doesn't it? I mean, one of my favourite things is whenever someone I don't really know very well is discussing me, the first thing they say is, "I don't agree with everything Sargon says." I mean, that's good. That's good because that constantly reminds me that I'm not living in a bloody echo chamber.
Yeah. Yeah.
But do you have that moment? Because I know I do, where I'm like, where was there ever an assumption that we would like have a hive mind? This isn't the evil within. We're not sinking to a collective consciousness.
What's funny is I think a lot of people leave that kind of logic behind. If you look at Gamergate, it is a amalgamation, a complete smash up of all sorts of different people from all sorts of different places with all sorts of different beliefs. I've never seen anything this diverse in my entire life.
That's what makes it great for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I love it. I love hanging out, you know, I mean, I don't really keep a lot of lists going on my tweet deck. But Gamergate is constantly up there, and I love watching it scroll by, and I love seeing all the different opinions, and I learn something every day. And just what's hilarious is that, you know, I've watched these people and I see them talk, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that, you know, I thought I was more or less alone. And now here are all these people right here, and it turns out that we were pretty much a silent majority the entire time, and now we've come out.
I think that is actually a very interesting point, because one of the things that Leigh Alexander's XOXO Fest talk, one of the things she says is she's got an acting degree, so this might have been bollocks, but this is the one bit of it that kind of came out sounding genuine, where she was like, this has all been really difficult, and I have to believe that we are the silent majority, or we are as numerous as the trolls and stuff. And I think that's really, it says a lot, because they are actually a really tiny group. You know,
yeah,
a really tiny group. If you look at, and they're not gamers. If you look at Anita Sarkeesian's Feminist Frequency Steam curation, she's got less than 8,000 people in her following her, whereas obviously Total Biscuit has got 500,000, and you know, it shows you who's actually playing the games. You know.
Right. I mean, to her own confession, though. You know.
Oh, of course, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm the first one to point that out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
She's not a gamer, exactly. She knows it. Everyone knows it.
She's admitted it straight up.
Sometimes, and then it waffles back and forth, and yeah.
When it's convenient, yeah.
That's frustrating to me. I mean, I've vented my spleen very much on that particular issue, because I was really at the point where I was like, you know, if this is what this industry wants from this form of analysis, fuck this, I'm in the wrong place. What was really validating for me is to do that, to take that big swing, because I was aware going into it, it's like, man, I might get just ground up into dog food over this. There was absolutely no evidence to support anybody was going to be receptive to that series, but it was amazing to me how many people, and one of the things I'm going to talk about in my post-mortem, my wrap-up that I'm doing on it, is how many people within Gamergate were open. They might not necessarily agree, but they were open to reading a feminist analysis that did treat games as games. Right. And I think that's so important, right? That there is a path forward, there is a middle ground, that everybody can kind of go, well, I'm not 100% behind this, but it doesn't piss me off.
Well, to expound on that, I mean, yeah, absolutely, and that's something that I think is one of Gamergate's main strengths, is the fact that we all have discovered that we can disagree and not hate each other.
I didn't get a single death threat. I didn't get a single rape threat.
Really?
And I didn't. Not with the feminist rate, because I was flying the big feminist flag. I used patriarchy. People got more mad at me for calling people beta males. Like, you know, it was all there. All the big, come get me, internet evil was there. Not a single one. Not a single one. And I think that's really telling. I think that. And I don't know what it is. This is a thing I'm struggling with, because I tweeted the other day, collecting data is fairly easy. Analyzing data without sounding like a schmuck is a lot harder. So I'm trying to figure out what that lack of, you know, the stuff that every woman has been trained to expect when talking about these issues. What does it mean that it didn't happen?
Well, that's a very interesting. Can we get to that in a minute?
Sure.
There are a few things. I just wanted to go over what you guys were going to be doing at the Escapist before we got into all this. So, Liana, what will you be doing at the Escapist?
The main show, as I said, is a cosplay show starting in the summer. That is the video portion.
Right, because I hear that cosplaying is rather popular.
I heard that too, and it's really funny, because that's one of the things that I got hit really hard on by, I'm calling it the Horseshoe Club, the extremes on either side of this whole thing. The Horseshoe Club.
I like that. I'm using that.
Good, please.
No, I will. So
yes,
go on. They both got on your case about.
Yeah, they were like, oh, you're a cosplayer, you're not to be taken seriously, essentially. And I'm like, are you freaking crazy?
Wow.
You know, this is, because to me, it's modern, or one could even say postmodern, you know, shamanistic tradition made exceptionally silly, plus Japan.
Oh,
you know?
your cultural appropriation. I should have thought.
Yeah, there we go. But the whole idea of the show is that it's just going to be fun. Like, it's not going to be stupid, but it's not going to be like these, the Heroes of Cosplay show where it was all the drama and the competition. And no,
just a bit of lighthearted cosplay.
Yeah, that's too reality TV for me. I just kind of want to see cool cosplay or how they made it and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what I felt, that there wasn't a show that kind of went, this is why people gravitate towards these characters, and we don't judge, like if somebody's, say, really into a character for some, what people would say, problematic reasons, we're just, going straight up anthology on it.
Wait,
judging.
hang on. What would be a problematic reason for liking a character?
Well, I'll refer you to my Google search and the number of partial body parts of me that are hanging out if you Google
okay. They're the sex-negative feminists, remember?
Yes.
You've got to remember that. I had to explain that to someone the other day. That there are two factions of feminism, and they don't really like don't really like each other very much. One of them are empowered and one of them are empowering and think women should do what they want, and the others are Puritans who think women should wear burqas. It's you can imagine which faction everyone likes, and you can imagine
the one that supports Kate Upton.
The one with boobs. That's
the one with boobs, and there's going to be a lot of boobs, male and female alike. There will be boobs.
There will be boobs. I think that somebody make that into a T-shirt.
There will be boobs.
That is a damn fine idea for a T-shirt.
I might have one.
Great. Okay. So Brandon, what are you going to be doing?
I'm actually writing. You've all seen John Oliver's Last Week Tonight, right?
Yeah.
I have. I'm a fan of John Oliver.
Oh yeah, I love John Oliver. I'm kind of doing what he does, but not in a video form. I'm doing it in article form. I'm writing, but I'm also not just writing for The Escapist. I was also given a writing gig over at Escapist's sister site, or another site owned by Defy Media, everyjoe.com.
See, that's a perfect fit for you, I think.
Yeah,
that's
it is a perfect, because that's as much as I rage about libertarian and men's issues, like, this is my site now, and I think that's one of the main reasons I was actually brought on, was to write for that site. So, The Escapist is a bless. I'm so happy to be writing there, and I can't wait to get started. But I'm pretty much just handling the previous week's news from a comedic standpoint.
Great.
That's
okay.
awesome.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
So very interesting. I'm interested. I'll be reading.
And that's what everybody freaked out about: cosplay and a news recap.
Well, they didn't freak out about that per se. What they freaked out about was who we were. And let's face facts. Yeah. And I'm going to probably repeat myself all night during this podcast about this very thing. It's not about what we've said or did in the past. It's about who we are.
Yeah, which is so
identity
silly.
Politics. It's identity politics.
Exactly.
I would go one step further, Brandon. It's not who we are. We're like an internet credit card. We're everyone they want us to be. It has nothing to do with our track record. It has nothing to do with facts. It's all of a sudden I'm just a jealous bimbo. Like, I've been writing for 10 freaking years.
I'm a massive transphobe now.
Oh my God.
What?
So am I, because of the joke I made about my dog.
We should start a club.
Hang on. I actually have the perfect tweet. I don't know who Tariq Musa is, but I saw him saying, "A voice for men, Stormfront, and The Escapist. Can we just admit it's a circle?" And it's like, wow. I mean, Stormfront, really?
That's hilarious, because I talked to that guy on Twitter. He knows better.
Why would you say that? Was that off basing it off of Liz's a voice for men linking to posting one of Liz's
maybe
blog posts? She didn't write there.
I'm not pro or anti a voice for men. I'm fairly neutral on the subject. The Escapist, I'm a big fan of, but Stormfront, I've recently been embroiled in some bloody online drama with neo-Nazis who are complaining that I'm not racist enough. And it's like, well, I'm very sorry. I'm just so sorry that I'm not very racist.
Sargon.
I know.
I could say so many offensive
You're just
things
letting these
about
Jews
that
get away
right
with
now.
whatever. I mean, come on.
Well, that's why I'm here. Like, oh my God.
I don't know what I'm supposed to say to them. It's like, look, sorry guys, I'm never going to be on your side.
Yeah, like
No,
you
the best
do.
one, the best one. I'm a social justice warrior who hates women. And I was like, look, mate, I don't think that's a thing. Yeah, I don't think you get
Wait,
social justice.
how does that work?
Exactly. I think you don't understand social justice warriors.
I know.
I don't know. Based on some of the things I've seen in the last 2 weeks, I think there are a lot of social justice warriors out there that do hate just everything.
Yeah, when you break it down, that's probably the more accurate description. Social justice warriors probably do hate women, so.
I think that they hate a lot of people. I think there is a lot of hate, and the things that's the thing. They seem to be alienating just group after group after group, and so now we've got to the point where we can look back along a long line of people, just basically citations. Yeah, the social justice warriors fucked around here, and everyone hated them there and there, and it's just eventually they're going to find themselves surrounded by people who hate them and on all directions because they've just pissed everyone off.
Yeah, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, where do you guys think it fucking stops? You stupid! Just stop it,
Yeah, well, Gamergate was like a huge tidal wave for them of resistance. I thought that the point of their downfall began when they got after Dr. Taylor, I think it was after about his shirt.
Oh God,
yeah.
He lands on a comet, and you're concerned about his shirt. There's no legitimacy to your entire group now.
I think that honestly is the point where modern feminism jumps the shark.
Yeah.
That is just so many people were just so pissed off about that.
Exactly.
And
I was really pissed off about that because
me too.
was like, it was like, I'm looking at this and going, there's so much wrong with this, because one thing I've done in my long and sordid internalized misogyny career is I've done pinup art.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically for a game called Battle Station Specific. And the thing is that guy's shirt was not just ladies. It was like Barbarella style sci-fi pinup art.
Right. And
that has a very special place, like a very special emotional place for a lot of people. Pinup girls aren't just, when you're using that, World War II style tradition, it's not just about naked ladies. Those are patron saints. Like those are the things guys were using to ward off the constant awareness of catastrophe.
Yeah. And that's really insightful.
Well, what taught me this, because I'm one of those people that like to go in and I like to get up to my elbows in something. Obviously, I'll remind you of the shit jackhammer phenomenon again. But when we did the promo tour, when we did the promo stuff, they gave us these Zippo lighters with our art on it, and we went around and we gave them to war vets. And guys were in Korea, guys were in Vietnam, and they started telling us stories they had not told their own children. Because we were not, it was like all these really tough Vietnam vets started going, look, Mr. Bubbles, an angel, and we started talking, and the stuff I learned, like the respect I got for these veterans was, I'll take that with me the rest of my life, right? And it was a great experience in that regard, because you really sort of get in and you realize what that art meant, especially in World War II with the ridiculously high death toll in that conflict, right? Yeah. But you see pinup art now on construction sites for the same reason. It's sort of trying to ward off workplace accidents, or at least not think about it. Yeah. And that's the thing that I think this I call it the boob libel, or the war on boobs, is missing, is that sometimes boobies are the only thing that takes the scary away.
That is totally true.
Yeah, see? Like
I'm going to agree with that automatically.
All right. But it's,
no. Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, I think, should we go through a few of the tweets that Ralph has on his site, just from anti-Gamergate people, just so people listening can just really get an impression of just how salty they were about this. Because
that's a new phrase I've been introduced to, by the way, salt. I didn't, people were like, oh, the salt coming at you, Brandon, it's delicious. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Me too, but it kind of clicks as soon as you think about it. doesn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
It's a glorious
You know,
phrase, yeah.
it is, and it sounds like it should be offensive.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
sounds
no,
like
yeah,
it should
it
be a
really
swear
does.
word.
Oh,
You
I
know,
make it
the way it's
offensive in
used.
my own head. I make it about bodily fluids, and it just makes it fun.
Yeah, so Peter Coffin tweeted, "The
Oh,
Escapist hired some mega conservatives. Are you mega conservatives? Just out of interest."
You know what? From my perspective, you know, I started out as a Republican when I first started writing for politics, and then I quickly moved on into conservatism, kind of dropped the republicanism. And then over time, you can probably watch the evolution if you have the patience to go through my ungodly large library of tweets, but you can kind of see my evolution into libertarianism. So,
So it's not like you. I mean, do you hate gay people? Do you want
God
to,
no. Like,
do you want to lock them up in death camps and see?
They sure would like to think that. What's funny is a lot of people don't understand that I've been, you know, there are a lot of gay conservatives out there, and I'm friends with a few. And my website, Misfit Politics, was constructed. Yeah, Milo's one. And my website, Misfit Politics, the one that I had a few years ago, that was actually created, like it was built by my gay Filipino friend. Like, you know, it's a lot of people will throw these accusations at me. I'm like, you don't even know me.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
am I very right wing? Hell yeah, I'm very right wing, and I'm open about it. I'm proud of it. I don't care. But yeah, ultra conservative.
I find it very annoying that the phrase right wing has become it's the ultimate ad hominem. You know, I just hear left wing people all the time. I mean, in Angry Joe's controversies, he was doing a fairly good job, I thought, until he got to the point where he's like, and then all these right-wingers came in, and as if there's just, no, they're not gamers, they can't possibly have anything to say about video games.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, Joe, you know, that's fucking wrong, man, you know, that's terrible.
And because, and I think that's why a lot of the blowback on me happened. I mean, you'll notice that, you know, Leia Alexander and Ben Kuchera and stuff like that can say some of the most heinous things.
The worst of the worst.
Yeah, exactly. They can, yeah. I mean, just stuff that would, like, if somebody else said that in their job, they'd be fired immediately.
Yeah.
But I said something about, you know, which was actually more geared toward free speech that was considered very transphobic, and we'll probably go over that here in a little bit. And if I had said that and I was somebody like Kuchera or Alexander, nobody would have said anything. But it's about who I am. It's about me being a libertarian right-wing guy who's white, straight, male Christian. You know, so on and so forth.
All the things that they hate more than anything
else.
yeah,
they fucking lost their minds.
I have to stress that sometimes I'm quite glad, actually. I had a recent scuffle with these right-wing fascists, because a lot of people accuse me of being right-wing. It's not like an accusation, I wouldn't have thought, but they come at me like it's an accusation. I'm just like, well, I'm not, but...
Yeah,
that's not something that I would consider, you know, like j'accuse, and I'm like, no, you found me out. You know, it's just a political position. It's not like, you know.
And again, disagreement does not have to equal hate. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have to agree. I don't have to agree with you on you know, government policy and stuff like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm still going to be able to go out and have a beer with you.
Yeah. I've actually found myself agreeing more with conservatives and people on the right a lot more recently, because people on the left think that they've won, and they seem to think they think they're doing some sort of ideological victory lap where suddenly facts don't matter, and you know, no, we're right, we're fighting for the good cause, so no matter what we say, it's right. And it's just it pisses me off, man. I've seen them just deny reality just over and over, and I'm just like, no, okay, you've lost me. These guys are still talking from a factual position. You know, I might not like or agree with their interpretation of the facts, but you guys are just full Macintosh, man.
I think that a lot of the confusion here's kind of the way I look at it. I know that over there in the UK, your political spectrum from left to right kind of goes, the further left you drift, the more you go into communism. And you know,
no, we're not. We're very capitalist in this country.
No. I'm saying like on the political spectrum, on the scale.
There's very
nationalism is on the right.
Yeah, nationalism is very right wing in this country. But I mean, there might be communists in this country. I'm just not aware of them.
Yeah,
that's how little impression they must be making. We're quite.
I'm not saying that left-wing people are communists. I'm saying like the extreme, you know, is.
But we don't have anyone who at least openly calls themselves communists. We're quite socialist, but that's not the same. You know,
Right.
it's definitely not the same thing.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, they are in Greece at the moment, aren't they? You know, literally communists. You know, so
But here in America, the left-right spectrum is, you know, the further left you drift, the more you kind of go into authoritarianism, and then like the further right you drift, the more you get into libertarianism, or, you know, just until you get to like complete anarchy. You know.
I don't know. I don't. I don't necessarily know regarding America, but I don't think it. When libertarians don't strike me as being particularly far right.
Right.
At least maybe it's just the way I understand the terms.
Well, it's just a freedom versus authoritarian type of thing. But these are observations that I've made.
Yeah, I don't think that they're necessarily left-right concepts. I think that the political compass with the top-bottom left-right is a lot more accurate. Because
I completely agree with that.
I like that. But I think that's why a lot of the people in politics here in America, especially, kind of view the lens that way. You know, that's how that's kind of in my experience. You know, the people on the left, the Democrats, you know, higher taxes, blah blah blah. But then, you know, they do right-wing things, quote unquote, like say, well, let's legalize drugs and gay marriage, to which, you know, libertarians are all about that, and we consider ourselves pretty right-wing. So it's.
I think
interesting.
I think the libertarians need a bit more nuance, because I mean I think the issue is most British people I think on average British people are probably at least the common sort of man is probably very much left-wing libertarian, not you know, centre-left sort of thing, you know,
right.
conservative liberalism, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
not too far, but not, you know, certainly not oppressive, you know. That's
here we divide it between fiscal conservatism or liberalism, which is about income redistribution, and then social conservatism or social liberalism, and we have a very, very weak strain of social conservatism. I mean, even the Conservative Party of Canada are pretty much like socially liberal, right? To the fact that out in Alberta, there's a party to contest the progressive conservatives out there called the Wild Rose Party, because the Conservative Party is not conservative enough.
Yeah, do you think it's a lack of religion in the Conservatives in Canada and Britain that makes them so left sort of leaning in a way?
I just think
they don't seem to have any moral authority backing, you know, a traditional conservative position, you know.
See, I think it's a few major things happened in Canada. Now, we do have more in common with you guys over there because of British common law. I think that you guys had a transformative figure in Thatcher in that way. That I mean,
rising figure.
You know, like you guys had that. That's a very unique figure in British history, right? Because we can't point to a very right-wing female who ascended that far and got there just by, you know, beating everyone else into submission.
No doubting that she did.
We have other things. I mean, we have a mosaic form of multiculturalism here, which is just basically, I describe it as the food good, then I don't care. You know, that's basically it here. It's like there are things that other people do culturally that other people may find kind of weird, but we're not at each other's throats the same way. And I think that, I mean, you know, healthcare is obviously a huge part of the Canadian identity. And you know, the federal, we're also more federalist, so we have a much easier time of these political things than the you know, our friends to the south do, because America's all about states' rights. And you know, constitutional challenges, and that makes something like, you know, transgendered rights, like gay marriage, like legalizing marijuana, anything like that, exceptionally more difficult, because you guys have to work checkerboard state to state. Our prime minister can just go, I'm the leader of the majority party, I am signing this. It has to pass the Senate, but it's like swoop across the country, this is legal, now it's up to the provinces and territories to figure it out. You know, it's a completely different political system.
Yeah, this is really interesting, actually. I'm such a freaking nerd.
We're all nerds. Why else are we here?
We're talking about
being
politics.
listened to by
Sorry
nerds.
for everyone who decided they wanted to tune in to hear about the Escapists. We're going to talk about politics for a little bit. Just hang on. Hang on. We'll get
Everyone's
to the
glued.
Escapists.
What are you talking about? We're brilliant and hilarious, and people are on the edge of their seats.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I love the way that America is set up in that fashion. How hard it is to get anything passed is to me, especially here in Texas. If you try to read our Constitution, it's damn near unreadable.
Oh, yes, it is.
It's so hard to pass a law here because it's so hard to get. But that has helped us quite a bit, obviously. But I like the fact that each state can decide whether or not it wants to do something. And it's not completely, beholden to the will of the federal government or whoever is sitting in the White House at the moment. That to me is awesome. But I'm the kind of guy who doesn't really like, being ruled over by anybody. I think America is like that in general. I think we're just naturally rebellious to a lot of stuff, and especially if that.
I think all the English-speaking people are.
Yeah. I mean, well, if you try to force something on us. Too quickly, you have to introduce it to us slowly and by increments, But if you try to just suddenly push something on us, we resist like naturally,
It's the principle.
Yeah, we're like, is there hockey? We're good. It's so funny. I think because it's really frigging cold up here, the butt hurt freezes. And we just can't get worked up on a lot of things the same way because it's like, did the world end? No. And I think we've gone through enough of that in recent memory that it just didn't get hot. It didn't get salty because it just, like, we just had a thing recently with physician-assisted suicide. The Supreme Court struck down the ban on it. And it was about 3 days of, whoa! And then it's like, well, the sun rose. Onward. Are the Leafs still losing? Yes.
So returning to The Escapist.
Yes. We never left, Sargon. We never left. The Escapist is a big tent.
So, just go through some of these tweets, actually. Because I love that tent analogy. Some of these are just amazing. The once venerable, this is Ian Miles Chung. The once venerable establishment now home to wingnut anti-feminist pundits, free from politics, my ass. It's like, listen, dipshit. You guys are the ones who are bringing politics into everything. The slogan for feminism is "the personal is political." That means there is nothing that you idiots do that isn't political, that you won't go and complain to other people about. Your personal fucking preferences. And then he's got like, oh, lol, the Escapist hiring right-wing bloggers who aren't even gamers to write for them. Are you guys gamers or not?
What? He published 2 of my pieces.
I mean, Ian, do you forget who side you're on? Who wrote the Gamers Are Dead articles?
Yeah, exactly.
Was it us?
Yeah.
Moron. You're not gamers either.
Yeah. I've been completely absent up until Gamergate about all the inner workings of, gamer journalism and stuff like that. I'd pick up a Game Informer, read an article, put it down. I'd go to IGN, and that was the end of it for me. I just like to play games. And
I was the same. I'd just go to the Escapist. To be honest, that was my site.
Yeah, I'd go to the Escapist all the time too. Yeah, I mean Yahtzee. Who didn't watch Yahtzee?
I love Yahtzee.
Exactly, and it's just interesting that suddenly I'm not a gamer because I support Gamergate or because I worked somewhere else.
That is my dog. He's a gamer too.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it's just. Like we're not gamers. Who are you to define us? What we do? We can't be a gamer unless we believe what you believe and tout the ideas that you tout. Blah blah blah.
It's not even that. They're the ones who actively tried to end the identity of gamer.
Yeah.
They're the ones who literally attacked it all on the same day. So it's like, you don't get to tell people who isn't a gamer, Ian. You guys literally don't want to be gamers. Don't fucking complain about anything. Just fuck off.
If you don't like it, then leave.
Exactly,
Start your own thing if you want to.
It's funny when people come at me like, you're not a gamer, you're not a real gamer. First of all, when did that become an exclusive club? I remember, people sneering at me for my Dungeons and Dragons, advanced Dungeons and Dragons books. But the first thing that always pops into my mind is the first time I saw a Mortal Kombat coin-op game at the local variety store. That's the first image that comes into my mind, and just that draw that any, you know, teenager, and I was probably a little young to be playing Mortal Kombat, but
I can remember what I was eating when I first saw the Mortal Kombat game.
Curly fries. I can remember what I was eating
Oreo
too.
ice cream.
Holy cow. But that game just, there was something in the brainstem that come to me, gamer. You know, there was something just so, like, literally visceral about what Mortal Kombat did. And I don't want to think. People say gaming is expensive now. We used to pump so many freaking quarters into those machines.
Seriously.
Like, but that's one of those moments, and that just sort of wipes out any sort of defense mechanism I may have about the identity politics, because it's like I'm too busy going shiny, shiny Mortal Kombat, you know. It just, and like, don't tell me that's not a gamer. Like, come on. I was so young when I started gaming.
It pisses me off, to be honest. It's just the idea that people who say that they're not gamers have got the gall to point at someone else and go, yeah, but they're not even gamers. It's like, shut up, you're not even gamers. You know, just shut up, you idiots.
Yeah. You don't even want to be gamers. What do you?
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to be gamers.
You're trying to tell us we're dead. You know, we don't have to be your audience anymore. Well, then, okay, fine.
Oh my God, yeah.
You don't have to be our writers. You don't have to
Technically,
be our
we're
reporters.
over.
How about that?
Well, I mean, what I said about that was that's as absurd as saying to a car marketer that drivers don't have to be your audience. That's absurd. It's just the verb to the noun. Yeah. But it's just the verb to the noun of what you're reporting on. That's silly. You know, and
I think it just shows that it's someone who it's their hobby, it's their primary interest. You know,
right?
They spend, you know, it's like with anyone, you know, anyone like golfers, you know, and whatnot. You know, anyone who is just, you know, they spend their hobby time doing whatever their hobby is above other things. You know, that's just, you know. Yeah. But so can we talk about Bob Chipman?
I know so little.
Yeah, I don't know much about Bob Chipman either. I didn't realize he existed up until. So I'm just going to let you go ahead and rant on, man.
Yeah, okay. I'm just sort of like with that. I've seen some stuff. He liked Sucker Punch. We diverged there. Jesus apparently, I saw a video. I couldn't get through it, but it's just like, no, you know. And I don't know him as a person. And this is a big line for me. I will comment on someone's work, but if I don't know them as a person, I'm not going to speak to them as a person. Some people are absolute nut jobs on Twitter, but
Bob Chipman is one of them.
Tell me about the one thing that I learned about Bob Chipman when he first got my attention was when he was fired from The Escapist or left or whatever, and he started to kind of retweet people into his timeline, kind of, you know, trashing The Escapist and talking about how better off he is, and I'm like, wow, dude. Look, you know, fired is one thing, but burning bridges like that, you know, that kind of paints you as that guy right here.
That's exactly it, isn't it? The whole thing with The Escapist, they are just, you know, just it's Mordor now to them. You know, it's, you know,
nice.
There is nothing about The Escapist that they're going to want to go back to, unless, you know, everyone who ever said a bad word against social justice warriors was fired, and they're never going to fire Yahtzee, so tough shit. Social justice
you know what's
warriors.
funny is the fact that a lot of the people who popped up whenever they announced that, you know, Lizzie, Liana, and I were going to be writing there, it was a bunch of people saying, we're never going to go read The Escapist again. They've lost our business. I'm like, what? So you guys aren't going to go read The Escapist some more? Like, what?
Okay.
You weren't their audience in the first place.
That's just categorically false, first of all. That's not how it works. Now, the internet, we have like Archive Today and ad block and everything like that, but there's this principle in media that is basically the Howard Stern effect. That people who claim to not support Howard Stern when he was on
half of his audience was people who hated him, wasn't it?
And they listened 4 times as long.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's still a rating. They're still getting commercials. They're still being affected by advertisers. I don't give a crap if people like me if they're consuming my content. You know, like the whole purpose of you know, a journalist or even a good opinion writer is to challenge. You know, it's like we were talking about earlier. So I always find it so funny when people are like, I don't agree with everything you said, but I write back a lot. At what point was there an assumption that you would?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't believe for a second that people are just going to boycott The Escapist because of a few hires. Because The Escapist is The Escapist because it creates high quality content, right? It's been the site. It was actually a Gears of War developer that put the idea in my head. I never even thought it was possible before this guy. He was really drunk at a PAX one year, and he's like, "We're gonna get you right in for The Escapist," and he was just like going, and that was sort of a moment. I'm like, "Oh, maybe this is possible." It took years, but I was always like, "That's Yahtzee, man." Like, but you know, Yahtzee's brand of comedy is deliberately politically incorrect.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, the stuff he did with The Sims 3, I should hate all of that, but I laughed my butt off. And that's why he's brilliant, because it was horribly offensive, and you could slap a million isms on that, but it was funny. Like, come on.
Sorry, oh no, go on, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's cool. It's just like, that's the thing. He's there to make jokes, and we all know what we're gonna get going in. When you start a zero punctuation video, you're sort of like, you take a breath, especially if it's a game you kind of like, and you put yourself in that headspace, and then you click and you watch those little gremlins. And it's funny now. I have a zero punctuation T-shirt.
Nice.
And it says "pants on head, word I can't say anymore." And the shirt that I bought because I was a fan, a gamer, I can't wear anymore because now it's considered offensive language.
But you know what? Fuck I completely agree with his response. You know what, Yancey's view on social justice warriors is it's the view of English children when they're at school. What are you going to do about it? You're going to cry. It's honestly the amount of times that is said in English school grounds across the country, not even English, British ones across the nation. It is just, that is the answer. What are you going to do? Cry about it? You know, you can go for a blub, and then they can't say yes I am, and then walk off with their head held high. They'll look stupid.
But sadly, a bunch of Tumblrites rose up to that question and said yes.
Oh, someone's just tweeted me, Sargon, care to explain why your chat has white supremacists in it? I don't know, they must hate me. I'm not in control of who goes in the chat, I'm afraid, friend. In fact, they're spamming the article calling me a social justice warrior who hates women. Go ahead.
Wow.
Anyone who reads it is going to be like, yeah, this is brilliant.
That's crazy. Like, first of all, when people make accusations like that, and this bothers me, and it bothers me for a very strange reason, because back in the 1990s, when being gay wasn't as accepted now, people said crazy knee-jerk things about gay people, and the ad hominems that are flying around right now remind me so much of that, and I saw the harm that it did back then in a completely different context, and I think. George Orwell said that a machine gun is still a machine gun, even if it's a righteous man's hand on the trigger, right? And when you start labeling people with things like that, instead of focusing on specific phrases or things like that, first of all, you're just making yourself look stupid and angry, and your own rage and your own hate is coming out. But if you label someone like that and you're wrong, what is this, McCarthyism?
Yeah.
It makes you a really fucking bad person. Basically, is what we're saying.
It's a witch hunt.
It's a terrible tactic, and I mean, I have a thing about witch hunts. I'm a Jewish ginger kid. We don't have very many places to run. We're a very small minority, and a lot of people think we eat souls in the blood of Christian babies.
You don't?
So only one day a week. It's good for iron.
Yeah.
But it's that's why I love the South Park game, because it was like, let's get it all out. I got to play as a ginger kid Jewish person in the South Park game, and I was like, yay, inclusion.
That is Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Actually, y'all laugh at me, but they actually changed a lot of my mind on political opinion, stuff like that. And I think what's funny is they did it for a lot of different people as well, without even knowing it. They don't care. They don't care about anything. They're not worried about upsetting anybody. And if you get upset, that's your fault, not theirs, you know? And I kind of love the way they have that outlook on everything. And their game, I haven't been able to play it yet. I want to
it's
so bad.
good. Like it's not just that it's delightfully offensive in the way you expect South Park to be.
I just feel like a bad fan that I haven't played.
Well, see, I did that with a few things, and I can understand that feeling because it took me forever to play Dishonored. And I admit, part of what put me off of it is those ridiculous spin the wheel of DLC, of pre-order packs that they did. You know, every different store had a different weapon set for the thing, and it kind of put me off when things get that commercial. But, you know, when I finally
it's a better Thief than Thief 4.
Yeah, when I finally did play it, I'm like, why did it take me so long? This game is love. You know, but I got to do it on my terms, and I wasn't playing it when I was paying a nerd tax. I was playing it when I was going to enjoy it. And I think there's something to be said for that. Because there are games I've had to cram, and I wish I had more time. Because I look back at the review and meant, man, if I didn't have to, you know, do 18 hours straight on that game, I would have been a lot cooler about what I said about it. I was so angry at the process, I took it out on the game. And that's one of those things about game journalism that is something I would love to see addressed. I would love to see that review crunch thing addressed. And I think with download codes, we're starting to get things sooner because now the publicist just has to send us a code as opposed to actually shipping us a physical game.
Yeah, yeah.
And at least, you know, we get 5 days with the game now instead of 48 hours.
Well, that's definitely a good thing. You know that's actually surprising given the number of games coming out these days. There is definitely an increased sort of release quantity, isn't there?
Oh, November almost killed me.
Yeah.
Holy cow! I barely even remember that month because I had to do Rogue, Unity, and Far Cry 4. And that was just, I'm on planet Ubisoft. Everywhere there is rabbits, stealth attack them like Sam Fisher. You know, you get disassociative at that point because it's like so much game. And they all had really cool things about them. But at the end of it, like the month of December, I'm like, I don't want to touch a control. Yes, I do. I'm going to play Sunset Overdrive. You know, but it was like one of those things. Another game that I don't think really got its due.
Sunset Overdrive?
Oh god, yeah, because I think it's an Xbox One exclusive.
It's one of those games that I actually kind of like watched for a little bit, and I was like, I'll wait till that comes down in price big time. I just don't see myself being interested in it. But I mean,
I love Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah,
I loved those games, and Sunset Overdrive is a lot of Insomniac getting back to that goofy kind of broad but smart humor.
Yeah.
It's a Technicolor apocalypse.
Yeah.
And it's glorious that way. It's fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It pokes fun at a ton of these post-apocalyptic tropes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of open-world game tropes. It's very, very funny that way. But I feel like because it was on the Xbox One, and because of when it was released, it didn't get its due as a game. Because it always sucks. I mean, it's the same thing that happened to some of the early PlayStation 3 titles. They were given short shrift because they were on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 was the cool kid system. Right? There is sort of that herd mentality that happens in every console generation. And
to interject, I mean, like the cool kid system for the Xbox, you know, I mean, if you'll remember back, I mean, Halo pretty much, it was an exclusive, and it pretty much dominated the market for a while and made everyone buy an Xbox.
And that's what's going to happen when Halo 5 comes out too. Like, who are we kidding?
God, I hope so.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. People bought the Master Chief Collection to play games they already owned.
You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong. Everybody
who
bought the Master Chief Collection.
I bought it. I've played each of these games like 8 times through and then some.
Honestly, you console peasants disgust me.
Did ODST start to make sense? Because that game was just like, huh?
I loved ODST. I felt like I'm the only person on the planet who was like, man, ODST was amazing.
I know somebody else.
You do? There's one other guy. I need to give him a call.
Yeah, there's one other guy who is just all about ODST. I'm not too rough on those things because I am not a Halo person.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like very shiny Doom clone, and then I duck because somebody throws something at me. But yeah, I mean, Halo was one of those right game, right time, right system things, right? It was this upstart console that had that brand America shininess on it, because it's the only non-Japanese console that's survived, right? And it sort of had that hometown pride thing going on. And Halo's big innovation is it brought shooters onto consoles, which is why PC Master Race folks can't stand it, and console players are like, this is cool, it's accessible, you know. But I still go with those two sticks trying to do shooters, because you know, the precision on a mouse is just so much better.
Yeah, I've gotten kind of I've kind of got developed an aversion to buying too many games on consoles anyway now. I've so been seduced by Steam. Steam is amazing to me.
There is a reason that it's Saint Gaben to you.
See,
I'm about to convert religions. Yeah.
Yeah, no, seriously, there really is a reason for it.
Yeah, I mean, Steam, I have a really love-hate relationship with Steam. I think just because of the nature of PC gaming. I mean, I was a PC gamer, and it's so funny when people are like, she's just getting into PC gaming, it's good to see. Bitches, I played Torment. You know, I was playing Baldur's Gate. I phoned up and yelled at Activision customer service because the damn Vampire the Masquerade game only played on 6 video cards.
Oh man, I can remember playing Journeyman Project. Do you guys remember that?
There you go. Oh yeah.
Journeyman
well, the Omega
Turbo
was the same company, right?
What was it?
The Omega Stone.
Elements.
It was basically the ancient astronaut theory done from a Christian perspective.
Oh, I never. What?
Yeah, it was an interesting game. Yeah. Huh. But I loved it because it was like Mayan stuff and put me there. Yes, but yeah, I remember, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s when we had, you know, the first video card wars and all the compatibility got really stupid, and you practically had to be able to swap out video cards to play certain games because everybody's doing this exclusive bullshit. And that's what pushed a lot of people onto consoles, was just the compatibility stuff. And the thing the PC companies, the software companies, screwed up then, that Steam should learn from now, is you have to make your products returnable, because you don't want anybody hesitating that second time because they got something they couldn't run and couldn't get their money back.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know about that, especially you know, with alpha release and early access stuff like that. You know, you have them charging like $6 or $7.
Oh, that's,
I mean, if I was Steam and then they are doing that, I'd say like, sorry, no refunds. I mean, sorry, $6 or $7. You made that decision. That's you. You know.
Oh yeah, early access is buyer beware. I'm talking like launch day, like full price. You pay your $70 and expect it to work, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
I think you should be able to get your money back, and they've started doing stuff. You know, if you do early access, you're taking a risk, and it's understood that you're getting the game when it's broken, and you know, you're part of the development process that way. But I had so many games. I mean, as we speak, my house is full of like motherboard boxes and stuff like that. We're trying to get my gaming rig up to, you know, this millennium. And it's frustrating. We keep putting it apart and seeing if it works and pulling it out, and it's a pain in the ass. And a lot of people don't want to have to deal with that because it is difficult to navigate. They've gotten a lot better, but it's still, it's not cheap, first of all. Holy cow.
That's my big problem. That's my big problem.
Yeah, and I mean, everything does look better.
Yeah.
But when you factor in the amount of time spent also just getting the stuff to configure, and not everybody's ready to sign up for that.
Yeah.
So
I'm when it comes to building PCs especially, I'm computer illiterate, completely computer illiterate. And
fucking typical console peasant, honestly. In my day, right? You couldn't You couldn't be part of the PC Master Race and not know how to build a PC. Because, god damn it, you were
Because there
going
were
to
no
have to upgrade
services.
something. Exactly.
Yeah,
You're going to have
yeah.
to upgrade something your fucking self, so you better fucking learn.
And it's so much easier now. Everything's just
Such an old
snap
man.
in. It goes together like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, it is. It really
You
is.
kids have it easy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
Back
actually
in my day, we had to use glue and nails.
I mean,
we
and
we
the
kind
only
of
problem we
did.
had was religious fundamentalists. I mean, for
Yeah.
Christ's sake, you know. And on that note, right? Stephen Totillo has published an article on Kotaku, everyone's favorite website.
Yay.
It's called "How Anita Sarkeesian Wants Video Games to Change." Would you like to go over the 8 bullet points that Anita Sarkeesian has as relayed by Stephen Totillo?
I'm salivating.
I thought you might, actually. So the article is, incredibly long. And at the end he gives a TLDR. Short version, so, number 1, avoid the Smurfette principle. Don't have one female character with an ensemble cast, let alone one whose personality is more or less girl or woman. How do you feel about
Now,
that?
that's a walk back from her
Go on.
previous stance. That is actually Anita blinking, which I find very interesting.
Would you like to elaborate that for us?
The Smurfette principle was part of her Ms. Male character thing. And the Smurfette principle was the only thing I thought actually had a germ of validity to it. But she neglected to spend any time on the Smurfette principle other than just defining what it was, to muck around digging at Ms. Pac-Man and a bunch of other beloved characters. The Smurfette principle is... the issue is not so much don't have one girl. It's if you have one of anything, be it one black character, one gay character, one female character, it's much harder for that character to be a character as opposed to a representation. So while I sort of agree with Smurfette principle bad, I think it's more important to just understand what it does, if that makes any sense.
I think it's an inevitable consequence of their requests for diversity.
And that's what I was just
Yeah.
about to say too, actually.
You know,
Sure.
what did you expect? You're like, oh, we want a woman in there. Okay, we'll put a woman in there. Are you happy? No, we're not fucking happy. There's only one woman in there. Why would we be happy? It's like, Jesus Christ.
But
Yeah, see,
if you're
number
going to write
two-
a story, I don't think diversity should be first
The
and
goal,
foremost
yeah.
a concern of yours.
Yeah.
You know, if the character in question calls for it being a female or black or gay or Jewish or
Yep.
redheaded Jew from Canada, whatever.
Best.
You know,
The perfect example of this is
Yep.
Daniel Vavra on Twitter recently, with his picture of Martin Lawrence in some historical movie, saying, "This is the protagonist of our 16th century Bohemian game." It's tokenism, and you know
Yeah.
it forces tokenism. If there's no need to have these things in, then don't. If there is a need, then there is. You know, I mean, it's rarely a great story that only has like a single type of person in it. It doesn't
Right.
tend to.
Right.
It doesn't tend to drive
It's
conflict or story arcs.
It's like
Yeah.
making Band of Brothers the video game and then like making, you know, Malarkey a girl just because you feel like you have to. It's not
Exactly. It is
Yes.
stupid.
See,
It's
that's going to
false.
lead to a lousy character.
Exactly,
Right.
because no longer is Malarkey, you know, this battle-weary soldier who used to be this, you know, happy-go-lucky guy from upstate wherever. You know, now he's this girl who is having to fight amongst men as a woman and dealing with woman things. It's no longer about the character; it's about being a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know.
Yeah.
And if you'd instead taken someone with the character traits you wanted out of that person and made them someone who fit in with whatever the circumstance was, you would be able to explore those character traits without exploring the difference of the character.
And the minute you start exploring difference, then you're othering, and that's not
Yeah.
good.
I kind of had that same problem with the new Ghostbusters remake, even though like I'm weirdly.
Oh God.
Don't get me started.
Here's the thing, and this is kind of one of the first things I came out with. I was like, you know, it's not that I care that these are women now. You know, it's the fact that it's going, especially in our
It's the
current social
principle.
climate, it's going to be about them being Ghostbusters and women.
Well,
Not
they're
them
Ms. Male
being
characters.
Ghostbusters.
They're
Yeah,
Ms. Male
they're all.
characters. Like, they are. And there's a perfect example of people sort of falling towards the we're going to score political points, or we're going to be quote-unquote progressive, and what they're actually doing is making it much harder for this film to succeed. Like,
Right.
why do we have to have binary gender? Why does it have to be all women or all men? I mean, let's face it, Annie Potts was a friggin' amazing part of the original Ghostbusters. So my
Right,
question
yeah.
Agreed.
is there going to be a Janine who's male, and what does that look like?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's
You
her
know?
romance with Egon going to look like? You know, it's yeah, I totally agree. So number
Yeah.
2 is lingerie is not armor. This is something that I remember when I was about 12 years old. At lunchtime I went and joined a D&D group, and
Yes.
one of the things that we used to joke about is, look at that character's armor. You know the high fantasy art where you've got, you know, the barbarian in a loincloth, the woman in a female equivalent of a loincloth.
And the
And it would be like
Boris Valero stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
beautifully drawn, but it's so cheesy. And
Of course.
the eternal joke is, oh my god, that's not going to protect you from anything. You do not need to be a feminist to be in objection to the fact that they, but it's such a cliche. I mean, how often do you actually see that around these days? It's a bit of an outdated complaint, isn't it? I mean,
It was definitely something that I think was popular with like romance novels and stuff in the 80s, where like the guy was like rippling muscles and like very
Arnold
drawn and
Schwarzenegger.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the trend that continued on. Especially, it's weirdly I've seen a lot of comparisons to the fantasy, genre art, and then also the romance novel fantasy art,
Well, because there's a reason for
where they're
that,
all
guys.
Fabio and yeah.
Okay, go on, Liana.
Fabio, are you prepared to have your minds blown? And possibly some other body parts? That was a response to the feminist revolution of the 1960s and 70s. The idea that there were men being shown in, praise for their physicality. I mean, let's face it, Fabio was kind of a piece of meat, right? And the fact that women were, because we were talking about the age of burning bras, right? Back then, the whole thing was, no, shouldn't we be able to show our bodies? That was a response to the liberalism of the 60s and 70s. And that's why I'm sitting here going, but what? That we're suddenly backlashing and we're claiming to be part of the same tradition. It's like, this is just a pendulum swinging.
And it
Right?
comes down to the sex-negative feminism as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it comes from that schism once everybody kind of went, okay, what are we going to do about porn? And some people went, I like porn, and other people are like, I'm going to go to the other side of the room now. And it's that sort of thing. I personally, and people are going to have a really hard time with this, but I can't hide it, there are pictures of me with my ass hanging out of a chainmail bikini online. I love that silly stuff.
Over 1,000
because
people
it's
just
silly.
hit Google right now.
Oh, I'm sure they've done it before. Just please, if you're going to print out a photo and jizz on my face, please use high-quality photo paper, because it just looks like
Show
you have
some
some
respect,
health
people.
condition if you don't. My friend is looking at me right now going, what did I miss? Now he's laughing.
But, it's that eternal. It's the eternal struggle between sort of, it's stupid. Everyone, people who actually play the games, I don't think they care for it. I've never really met anyone who's been like, that's what we want. And like you said, it does seem to be a reaction to something else, and it seems to be, again, it's not even particularly titillating, really. I mean, when I'm watching, when I look at these pictures, the old style pictures of like the rippling barbarians and the half naked women fighting a dragon, all I'm thinking is, wow, they're about to get fried.
Yeah, I mean,
They are
all of
literally
it.
about to-
All of it is kind of absurd. Like, let's face it, a lot of these are targeting Japanese fighting games or Japanese games as a whole that focus more on displacement instead of a reflection of reality.
Dead or
I
Alive
think
beat
primarily
volleyball.
this one is, yeah. This
Yeah.
one.
And the funny thing is, I really had to struggle with this one because some of my favorite characters come from these games. And I realized that what I like about these games is that we're quibbling about outfits in a game where people can rip off other people's arms, beat them to death with it. A ninja guy is fighting a giant rock monster, and we're worried about the practicality of the clothing.
Yeah.
The whole idea of these games is that they are silly and they are stupid, and we can all have a laugh about it. I mean, the thing I point out all the time is if you look at Soul Calibur 4, all of those costumes were designed to be visual character points, tying characters to each other as well as Soul Calibur or Soul Edge, the good sword and the evil sword. So, for instance, anybody who had a single arm of armor, so Ivy, Tira, Nightmare, people like that, they were all connected to Soul Edge. Whereas people who didn't have it, they had a more symmetrical character design, they were connected to Soul Calibur, so they were sort of the good guy roster. But then you also saw connections between characters, use of color, use of, the bondage outfit is identical usage between Ivy and Voldo, who nobody gets on Voldo about being, hypersexualized, and he is a very objectified character. He can't speak. He's blinded. He's there to be a guard dog for his old master's treasure. But people only focus on the women. And so my take on this whole, lingerie is not armor, my response is, no shit, we all know that. So let's just be aware, and when lingerie isn't armor, let's call attention to it. There's have either of you played Quest for Infamy?
I have not.
Okay, it's a Quest for Glory spoof where you play as, an idiot, sort of douchebag anti-hero. It's really cute. You get to pee on carpets and castles and things like that. Yeah. But they have the stereotypical Valkyrie-type, women in the chainmail bikinis, and they have the typical sexy witch. And she actually points out that she's wearing that outfit as a distraction. She knows it's stupid, and she can't believe how effective the damn thing is at making people do what she wants. And then, it turns out the Valkyrie soldiers, it's the all-female soldiers in this town, but it turns out the guy's a sexist pig, and one of your things is you liberate the city so people can wear something more practical. They're basically an honor guard. And I'm like, this is awesome, because it's using all these tropes, it's using all these silly fantasy conventions that we all like and we all think are fun, just because of how improbable it is. But they're calling attention to it, sticking a pin in it, and going, we know this is dumb.
Yeah.
It's the kids don't try this at home principle.
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, I mean, who is it actually hurting? It's not hurting women any more than the Conan the Barbarian figure she's standing next to is hurting me, is it? It's fucking art. That's actually, and some things are shit. Believe it or not, I even think that shit things have a right to exist, which is how I'm pitching my game.
That's good. That's good.
So, but yeah, it just seems like a whinge, really, doesn't it? It's just like, lingerie's not armor. Yeah, no one really thinks it is. No one's really on the side of the lingerie of armor.
Yeah, Liana was right. This is fantasy. Who gives a crap? Is the game good?
Yeah, exactly.
I had to go through this whole soul searching thing because there was a time that stuff did kind of bother me. And let's face it, it's because I was nerd girl. I was playing D&D and having people say, Liana, if you were a girl, what would you think? I was completely degendered because I was smart. It didn't matter. It was like God was just giving me this massive chest to try to make everybody around me go, look, female! But it didn't work, and now I have to tote them around for the rest of my life. But that was the time that I was like, I hate these women. And I realized it was competitiveness. I felt like they had something that was more valued by society than what I had to offer. And so that's why I love games like, Saints Row, where they have the busty characters with, the strippers in the White House and the whole thing. But then they have characters like Kinsey, who are, badass, super smart computer hackers. And there's a diversity of female characters, so everybody can sort of pick their favorites, and the game's not telling you who to like. You just decide for yourself. And I think all the characters in Saints Row are extremely likable, which is part of the brilliance of the game, because they're all sort of thugs, and you know that, but still,
you shouldn't like any of them, but
you do in that world. I mean, the entire point of that game world is that this is a world where people would elect thugs, known thugs, as president. Okay, that's your premise, right? Let's move on from there. I like this, but that's an incredibly diverse game. Saints Row 3 and 4 are incredibly diverse games.
Yeah, no,
If
absolutely.
you actually look at them, I mean, the most dangerous guy in the whole universe is a bisexual Asian dude. And, you know, there are people of every color under imaginable. You can transgender your character. You can make your character undergo gender reassignment and still keep the voice you had before. So you can have a male character with a female voice. You know, you can have a female character that talks like Nolan North. And I'm going, this is flying under the nose of everybody because it's not beating you over the head with it. It's just there.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
And it's a gameplay mechanic. It's not a narrative device.
If I recall correctly, you can choose the voice you want in Baldur's Gate as well, can't you?
Yeah, none of them are especially great, but yes, there are.
No, there were some good ones. Come on, there were some great.
There were a couple. The men are better than the women. The women to me sound like one woman trying to do 4 different voices.
Yeah, it might be actually. It might be.
Yeah,
But, okay,
but I mean, they had no friggin' money, right? And
Yeah,
we're only
yeah,
on
exactly.
number 2.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I mean,
number 3 is a good one.
does anybody question this though?
He's just posted it. I think it's a brand new article.
But I mean, even before this, that's number 3. Have female characters of various body types. That's not a diversity thing. That's a money thing.
Well,
Every
even
time you.
Do you
Sorry, go
really
ahead.
want to play some sort of fat Tumblrite in a game? I mean, you know, I don't want to play some land whale of any sex, for fuck's sake.
See,
You know,
I sometimes like playing, like in Saints Row 2. I was like, wow, I can play as an ugly fat dude. This is an eye opener. I've never been able to do this before, and I walked around like, you know, this overweight, insane clown posse reject, and I had a grand old time because it was just, you know, the shock of the new. It's like, I've never been able to do this, and I think certain games it makes sense, certain games it doesn't, but then we get into the issue of so many of the games that do exist have, you know, 90-pound women being able to lift the same amount as a 220-pound
Yeah.
dude. And
Yeah.
that's not practical either. And, you know, I don't think anybody disputes 3 or 5 include more female characters of color. But I think if I were writing this, I'd have female characters of various body types for a reason, and
Yeah.
include more female characters of color, but don't make it suck.
Wait,
Exactly.
number 3 is?
Yeah,
Have
well,
female characters of various
yeah.
body types.
I mean, the only game that I can think that I've actually really given a fuck about this was I've just started playing 7 Days to Die, and
Okay.
it's really good. It's you know, like Minecraft crossed with The Walking Dead, so I'm really enjoying it. And I noticed that on the character creation, you can change the character's butt size. So I went for the biggest ass that I could have just for.
You went the
novelty's sake.
full Kim Kardashian,
Maybe
Yeah, I have junk in my character's trunk, and that's.
the full J-Lo.
But it's you know, I don't ever see my own character's ass, so it doesn't really
Right.
matter, you know.
Right.
It's-
Going back to the for number 3, going back to Soul Calibur. I mean, if you somebody posted on Reddit not too long ago the scales of the women
See,
within
I love
the game.
that.
And
I
yeah,
love
and they say they want more various body types for women. If you look on Soul Calibur and look at the scale of the women from largest to smallest, there is a wide range.
Yeah.
And I wish I could find. In fact, I'm going to see if I can't. While
I
we're
have it on
talking,
my
find
phone.
it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Because I'll post it because it's really interesting to look at.
But
Yeah, well,
the
because
thing
you
is,
have
it's
people like
a lot of
Talon.
games. A lot of games are like idealistic representations of things anyway. I mean,
Bingo.
you know, a lot of the games I play, you know, none of the men I've ever met in my life look like men in these games, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's a power fantasy." It's like, well, can't women have power fantasies? I mean, I don't know if they can or can't. I'm just asking, really.
What do you think things like Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey are, Sargon?
They don't sound like power fantasies
Oh,
to me.
they so are.
Oh no, wait, they probably are.
Power
aren't they?
fantasies?
No,
Yeah.
think about it, Brandon. Right? It's actually having so much influence over a man that he obsesses about you day and night, and he
There
can't
you
help
go.
but stare at you.
Oh, that's no, yeah, totally.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it until you mentioned that. Then.
Well,
So,
yeah,
good point,
that's
good point.
that's one of those things that I'm like, and I mean, this came up. I did a lot of media when the Twilight books came out because it was the question of, is this junk? And the thing is, well, you know, it's junk like Spider-Man was junk at one point, but it's relevant junk, you know? Like, what is it about the adolescent female experience that people related to Twilight? And what I talked to two teenagers, my friends' nieces, who are all about Twilight, and I'm like, but you know, she gets the crap kicked out of her for not doing what she's told. And oh, we know, and all this, and they finally said, we like her because she's stupid. And it's like, oh, the resonance is freedom to be flawed. Bella is such a catastrophic fuck up that she validates the reader.
That's very interesting, actually. Is the same true of Anastasia Steele? Is it?
God, she's a virgin whore.
I haven't read it. I haven't read.
Spare yourself.
So, I wasn't going to.
See, the hierarchy for me is Anne Rice paid Stephanie Myers to make Interview the Vampire look good, and then E.L. James to come along to make Stephanie Meyer look like a competent writer.
I was
Because wow,
obsessed with Anne Rice for a long time, and coming from a guy who read all about Lestat's adventures and stuff like that, and then seeing Twilight, I was mad.
A friend of mine is really big fan Anne Rice. He's a guy, and he's a massive Anne Rice fan. He loves the whole. I think I really enjoyed the film. Of Interview with the Vampire. I thought it was great.
I did too. A lot of people hated it, but I actually liked it.
I honestly don't see why. I thought Tom Cruise was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was a sort of unhinged vampire. He's
crazy, and I
love close to real life.
Oh, he's also a flaming narcissist.
Full caliber body types, by the way. I posted on Twitter in Gamergate hashtag as well, so you guys can take a look at that.
Yeah. Okay. So the next sort of 3 or 4 points are just they really. I'm just going to read them out like all at once because they just sound like insecurity, right? I mean, even the female characters of various body types. Okay. Don't overemphasize female characters' rear ends, not any more than you would the average male characters. Include more females of color. Animate female characters to move the way women, soldiers, or athletes would move. Record female character voiceover so pain sounds painful and not orgasmic. And it's just like, these are just kind of...
You want to hear a funny story about number 7?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, Tomb Raider, reboot.
Yeah.
People accused it of being, she sounds like a phone sex operator. So, me being me, I went in and I asked a Tomb Raider dev, people have said this. What do you say? The guy blushed red. And
we were punching her in the foot, and that's how it came out.
He said they did full sound and motion capture. So full voice and motion at the same time. So the noises that, actress was making, the mocap actress was making, was actually just the noises she was making while she was climbing up things and running around and bouncing off walls, and they just captured them.
Obviously, they filmed her while she was. They sound recorded it while she was having sex, though. Obviously.
I think if they'd actually done that, they would have been, yeah, we did it, because that breaks the brain. No, the guy. What was compelling to me was the fact that he blushed, and that's not a reaction you can control. And it was like. Wow, he's not BSing me here. He's not giving me a stump speech. He was actually caught off guard by the question. He was a little embarrassed at the idea that they would do that to a character. The thrust behind Lara Croft has always been, and this disappoints me about the reboot, make her more likable. Make her more likable. I like the fact that she was Byronic.
She was a bitch.
Yeah, and I like that. Because do we care?
Why would you want to make her likable? That's the whole character.
Exactly. But they thought the problem with her is that she was unlikable. Now that would not happen if they wanted to objectify her, right? They wouldn't care. Yeah. And I think you've got to be really careful with, sound painful, not orgasmic. You've got to watch that you're not being sort of Freudian, Jungian kind of thing there. Like, know what you're talking about before you make that accusation, because the sounds kind of sound similar.
It's down to interpretation, isn't it? And to one person it's like, oh, that sounds like tennis players. People are always complaining that they sound like they're having sex and whatnot when they're playing tennis. It's like, look, they're fucking playing tennis. It's effort. What do you want? They're grunts. If people grunt, there's only so many different ways you can make a grunt sound.
Yeah.
And what does painful sound like?
Exactly. You know.
Like, that's very subjective.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's also true. And, you know, one person's pain sound isn't going to sound exactly like the others.
Exactly, and all of these things are just such nitpicky character inclusions. Like, oh, don't focus on their rear ends too much. Oh, all right, Mum, sorry, Jesus.
Well, let's keep in mind that these people are in the business of being outraged. So no matter what you do, no matter what you say, they're going to find something to be pissed off about.
And this is number 8 as well. This is number 8 all over. Include female enemies, but don't sexualize those enemies. It's what sexuality is power.
Yeah, I completely disagree. Yeah, I completely disagree with number 8. Why the hell not?
That you don't have to. It doesn't have to be, but you can write a hell of a good female antagonist who uses her sexuality to her advantage. I mean, for Christ's sake.
You're telling me the Silent Hill nurses, part of the reason they were, ass-clenchingly terrifying is not because there was a hint of sexuality about them.
Absolutely. It's a thing that for humans is innately confusing. Their whole lives, some people wrestle with their sexuality, and to have someone wielding it as a weapon, I think that's good storytelling in my opinion. But
and I mean, like for instance, the God of War games, they used the actual Furies. And one of the Furies was legit the goddess of STDs. That's that. I don't know if you've played God of War Ascension, but that one where the scarab beetles come out of like weird pockets in her boobs. Yeah, she's a sexualized character, but that's because historically she was the big bad that comes to you if you screw around on your spouse and pick up a bug, and I give the God of War franchise credit for using, historical art to inform what their characters look like. That's cool.
No, absolutely.
And this, I can't think of anything more counter to feminism than inherently demonizing female sexuality.
Yeah, I think it just seems so anti-feminist. The whole concept is it's so conservative,
Well, I think
don't sexualize people. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, come on.
Well, controlling the sex urge at all is incredibly authoritarian.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it, like especially lately, is a certain type of body type is now taboo. Where it used to be, looked down on to be fat and stuff like that. Now they're saying, well, do you have a gap between your legs? Well, that's too sexualized for stuff. You'll recall I think it was in the UK where they had Urban Outfitters take that picture down from online.
Yeah. Skinny model, basically.
Right. I think it's a certain body type they have if it's not big and beautiful, it's gone.
Yeah.
But you gotta be big and beautiful all over. You can't have a small waist and big everything else, right? It is attempting.
Otherwise, it's too pronounced.
It's attempting to control not just female sexuality but male sexuality as well. And
absolutely.
that I think part of the reason we're so conflicted about sex is that we catastrophize it and we make a big deal out of it, and we make the entire act so unnatural that everybody's neurotic about it, like everybody's disordered about it.
Yeah.
Instead of going, this how we reproduce,
it's not evil,
No, there's nothing evil about it. Nothing.
Yeah. The male gaze and sexuality they're things to be indulged in to a certain degree. Don't go crazy, obviously, but fucking, don't. It's this Puritanism. It really pisses me off. Like, and the whole don't include female enemies. Yeah, bollocks. You'll sit there and go, hang on, I've heard this refrain. Violence against women. So no, if we have an army of female enemies and I'm encouraged to shoot my enemies, then you'll lose your fucking shit. So don't even need to talk easy. Do not.
That's a huge issue.
For a fucking second.
One of the things I was really upset about the bugginess of Assassin's Creed Unity is that they played with that. They played with this idea of you want female action heroes, well, they're going to get hurt. And some of them are even going to die. Are we ready for that? And
I'm fine with that. I think that's just like with anything. If you're going to include proactive, strong representations of any kind of character archetype, then they should go through the full gamut of what it is to be a human being, which means
Agreed.
dying in battle if they go into battle. You know, but I mean, I'm not the one who's complaining that GTA causes whatever they claim GTA causes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because what's been linked to Grand Theft Auto is actually murders of men. Like the people that went on the GTA inspired, and I use that term very loosely, right? Inspired by Grand Theft Auto. It's the same way, you know,
It's
Catch
interesting, though,
Fly.
The only one I know of, like the only female I knew that died because of Grand Theft Auto, quote unquote, was the 8-year-old kid who shot his grandmother.
Yeah.
Really?
That,
I didn't hear about that.
yeah, I wrote an article on it a few years, I think, or a year ago maybe. I can't remember how long ago it was, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's I don't think it. I still didn't even blame the video game for it. Did it inspire it? Probably, but did it? Don't give a kid like that young Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
Yeah, it's not
be
appropriate for
responsible.
an 8-year-old.
Exactly. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
what are they going to get from it? Like, give them a game with some ragdoll physics that don't involve crime.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
something
there are
they can
plenty of
relate
games
to.
out there for kids like that. But I mean, I used to work at a GameStop, and so many people, especially when Grand Theft Auto 5 was released, so many people would come in with their little kid who couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. He was like, "Okay, I'm getting this for," and I would tell them straight up. You know,
Yeah.
I've made a few kids cry. I'm sorry to say, but I tell the parents, I'm like, "Look, this is not a game for children. You can do X, Y, and Z in this game. I'm not sure if that's." And so many parents said, "That's okay. He sees that stuff all the time."
Wow.
Well, 10 out of 10 for parenting, you fucking
Yeah,
idiot.
seriously. You
Yeah,
know,
I mean, my son will not be getting a copy of Grand Theft Auto until he's 18.
yeah.
So,
Or, you know,
One
if
of those things.
he hits 16 and all of a sudden you as the parent think he can handle it,
Yeah.
you know, then
It's
you make
definitely
that
a parent's
choice then.
judgment thing. It's definitely a
Yeah.
parent's judgment thing. I want to leave it up to them, but at the same time, be responsible about it.
yeah.
You know,
8
you know
years old is definitely too young, though.
Yeah, exactly. Back when a kid is that young, playtime is serious. That is
Sure.
learning time. That is where they pick up stuff. And if you're just going to go ahead and hand to kids something that shows you murder, violence, and killing indiscriminately for laughs, then guess what? That kid is going to kind of absorb that a little bit. Now, I'm not
Well,
saying he's going to grow up to be a killer at all. That's not what I'm saying.
If anything, I'd be more worried about the kid having nightmares or something.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
They're
Yeah.
kids, so, you know, I'd be more worried about them crying or something.
That's what happened to me when I played the original Resident Evil at 15. You know, like I was the hunters were coming to get me in my sleep. But yeah, that's what I like about games like Disney Infinity that are deliberately designed for 9 to 13-year-olds to try to sort of extend interest in kids' games that aren't garbage.
Or Minecraft.
Or Minecraft, yeah, there's a great one too. But the problem up until these products came along was there wasn't anything that had that great gameplay experience, and kids knew it. Kids know when a game is garbage, you know, and it's not the kids' fault that the gameplay elements of the games that were quote-unquote age-appropriate were not sustaining their interest. You know, they're going to go on to something that does sustain their interest. And I mean, kids love superheroes, and to them, video game characters, it doesn't matter what they are, they're a form of superhero. Right? And I don't know that I can explain the difference to a kid between, say, Master Chief and Iron Man.
I think there's
Or
some-
Yeah, it depends on the age. It depends on the age.
Yeah.
Because I think, yeah, well, you know, kids of, you know, quite young, they're not going to be able to tell the difference, particularly.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't think, for instance, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 was an appropriate movie for kids. I don't think a lot of these Marvel films are kid-friendly in the way that I think people expect them to be. That PG-13 rating here, it's getting so elastic. And to the point that parents have to see the movie once before they're comfortable to see the movie with their children, and I think that's just nuts. You know?
Well, I think a lot of this is coming from the fact, and this is kind of a trend. You ever notice like a lot of children's programs nowadays also kind of cater to adults? The one that I can think of off the top of my head is SpongeBob.
Yep.
You know, I can remember now looking back at Rocko's Modern Life. You know, I watched that when I was a kid,
I
like my
loved
favorite
that
cartoon of all
show.
time.
I love-
But if
yeah, I
you,
love
look,
that
if you
Beyond
watch the
Everything.
show now, you'll pick up a lot of references to adult content
Oh yeah.
that you didn't
The
get.
choky chicken, goddamn right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But it just sailed over our heads at that age. We come back and kind of go, you know,
Yeah.
like some of the jokes in Aladdin were of an adult nature. You know, Sebastian the Crab got a few zingers in The Little Mermaid. That's okay because kids aren't engaging in that.
On that level, yeah.
On
They're
that
not
level.
engaging on the level that we are. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean these people are masters of family entertainment, and I think that's the difference. At some point, it shifted from family entertainment when there was one TV set, you know, at the height of cultivation theory that's all making all of us miserable now because it's being applied places it doesn't belong. There was one set in a household, and everybody had to agree on a show. Now, instead of family programming, we've got kids programming and adult programming and young adult programming and tween programming, which always makes me want to stab my eyes out with a pencil. And it's this concept of age appropriateness I find, because I think about what I liked when I was a kid. You know, I discovered The Lord of the Rings at the age of 9. Now, that would not be considered age-appropriate for a 9-year-old today.
Well, what, are you talking about the cartoon, the old cartoon?
Oh, no, the books.
Oh, the books, because I watched the old cartoon. I must have been about 8 or 9 myself, and the orcs in that were terrifying.
Yeah, they were.
It's that animation style, I think, that was terrifying,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. Like, I can remember I saw around when I was a young kid, I saw heavy metal for the first time.
Oh,
Really?
wow.
I still haven't seen that, actually.
It's,
Well,
it scared me. It gave me nightmares. I don't know why.
I remember
I think it
things
was
like
just the art style.
I remember things like The Secret of Nim and Watership Down. I mean,
Oh,
watch
watch it down. Terrifying.
yeah, like watch cute fuzzy animals get murdered. I mean, even something like The Never-Ending Story was really
Oh,
gripping.
Neverending
Like
Story,
there was
yeah.
real peril. And how come, you know, the three of us are having a very, you know, fun conversation? Why are we not homicidal maniacs?
Well, can I ask you a question? I mean,
Mhm.
how were your parents married and together for your childhood?
Until I was 12.
Okay, and what about you, Brendan? If you don't mind, Brandon.
Well, my parents divorced when I was very, very, very young, but
Right, so,
also
okay.
remarried when I was very, very young. So I actually had 2 families.
So you had a solid home life, you know. Your parents
Yeah,
cared
absolutely,
about
I
it, you know, and that's what I really think it's all about. You know, this sort of, you know, kids don't need parents sort of attitude. It's just, it really is pissing me off.
And
because
that's the
doesn't-
conclusion I reached too.
Yeah,
in the article I wrote about the Grand Theft Auto Kid, it's the parents at the end of the day.
Exactly, it always has been. It always has been, you know, and it really annoys me that people want to externalize all this bollocks and just onto media, onto this, onto that, onto the other, and it's like, at the end of the day, all of this can be solved by just being a good parent.
Yeah, exactly. It
Yeah.
all boils down to home life and how you raise the kid. You know, I mean, and here's the problem that we're facing nowadays is a lot of people just neglect their kids. They'll set them inside, in front of a TV with a video game controller or something like that, and they won't interact with their kid. I sent you an article not too long ago about parents starting to give their kids drugs now, that will modify their behavior and calm them down and stuff like that. You know, like my infant cries too much, I'll give him a pill. You know, my little boy is too rowdy, I'll give him a pill.
Yeah, there's a distinct and disturbing trend of drugging kids in America, which
And I think it's lazy parenting at the end of the day is everything. I mean, these kids are going to grow.
The worst though as well. You know, you're giving your kids pharmaceutical drugs because you're lazy. It's terrible. It's fucking
You need
terrible.
to play with your kid, let them go outside and run and jump, and guess what? Hurt themselves sometimes.
Yeah.
You know.
Kids break bones now, from time to time. You know, it happens.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a learning experience too. And
That was
There's-
me as a kid.
oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. Like some of the inadvisable things I did there was this thing called a GT Snow Racer. I don't know if you guys remember this thing. It was a completely inadvisable product. It's beer 30. It was this completely inadvisable product that it was a toboggan that you could steer, essentially. So there's a wheel on the front. It was kind of like a luge. And we built ramps for this thing, and basically not deliberately played an impromptu game of pain, because we went on this thing and the GT Snow Racer went one way and I went the other way, flat into a tree. And now it's like, oh, irresponsible parenting, you weren't watching. No, we were kids, we were having freaking fun, we were testing our limits, and I didn't do something that stupid again.
Yeah.
You know, but nobody died. It hurt. You know, it hurt. But I dislocated fingers playing basketball. I constantly had a skin knee when I was a kid.
It's all in the effort to be safe, and I have a theory about that actually. It's I think a lot of society today puts way more into intelligence than they do wisdom, because gaining intelligence is safe. You know,
I so agree.
you can sit at a desk and you can read a book, you can listen to a professor drone on or a teacher or whatever. But wisdom comes at the end of danger. You know, going outside and learning that you shouldn't ride your skateboard down a hill that fast if you know, because you might lose your balance. Be more careful next time. You know, don't climb that high in a tree to where the branches are that thin, because it might break off and you might fall and hurt yourself.
That's a great observation.
Yeah, wisdom comes at the end of danger, and I think that a lot of us now will not put our kids in danger. We won't let them endanger themselves. But you have to, at the end of the day, let your kid go out and experience the world, because the world, at the end of the day, intelligence comes and goes. Wisdom is a staying power, and it's the thing that helps you live your life throughout your existence. We don't put that much emphasis on wisdom anymore.
Unless you're a cleric.
The very concept of trigger warnings exists now. I mean, just, you know, come on.
Exactly.
See that?
I'm just gonna grab a cup of tea, guys.
Yeah, you go. I grabbed a beer.
The whole trigger warning thing is a tricky one for me, because you know, I see the point of them. I think it's the way they're applied, and I don't know why they have to have a special name. I don't know why it can't just be content warning.
Right.
You know, the name, I think, is what ironically triggers people. Right? The idea that it's some special thing, and for me, I'm kind of like, well, why is it just? It's primarily used for sexual assault, but why wouldn't it also be used for descriptions of graphic wartime footage? Because for sufferers of military PTSD,
right.
You know, I think being able to determine for yourself whether you're ready to see this is super important. The pageantry connected to it right now is, I think, what people react to. So I think there's got to be a way that we can sort of dial it back so it's not insulting so many people's intelligence, but still keep that utility for the people who need it.
Right.
You know, because I say this as somebody who's experienced trauma triggers, and they do come on without warning. There's some you can predict, there's some you can't. But you know, for instance, you're not going to have to worry about a smell reminding you of something in a video game. Right? But then there are other things. You know, some people are freaked out by the sound of carousels. Well, that's a much harder thing to avoid. At the same time, I think it's fair to go, no, we know some major ones, and I think it's just the performance element of what is essentially a good idea has really damaged the debate to the point that we're not even talking about practicalities anymore, or whether there's a purpose for them, because I think
and that's a huge problem.
Absolutely, because I think content warnings are actually an alternative to censorship. It's not telling me what to watch. It's telling me what things I may not be in. I may not be in the mood for. You know.
Right. Exactly. You know, and this, I mean, it'll help parents kind of judge what they want their kids to watch too. You know, that's all. I'm all for that. I'm all for content warnings, and that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for instance, everybody's talking about Birdman, right? People in specific mental states of mind should not be watching Birdman. Right? Like, it's just not advisable. There's pretty much every trigger warning worthy activity happens in this movie.
My problem with trigger warnings is that I think it's, you know, in an effort to make sure that everyone stays calm and centered and cool, you're actually weakening people's resolve against everyday shit.
See, I was more, okay, I'm prepared for this now. I'm going into this knowing I'm going to encounter it, and so I could. when something catches you off guard, it's a very different mental process because then you're not in control, right? And PTSD is all about feeling like you don't have control. So if you're going, all right, I'm going in, I'm choosing to do this, I have, you know, agency, for lack of a better term, it affects your brain extremely differently than if you're coming in on it cold and you feel like you've just been, you know, sideswiped by something. And that's why I think and I made sure this wasn't just me. I've talked to a few other people with post-traumatic stress disorder and you know, professionals and things like that. And there seems to be this consensus of, yeah, you can't hide from the world forever. You can't. That's
Nope.
going to compound it. Avoidance does compound it. But mindset really matters. And so, you know, this is where the libertarianism kicks in. I can't control what someone else does with a content warning.
Yeah.
I am going to develop content warnings. I am going to use content warnings considerately for the people who aren't dickheads about it. You know, like the people who do, you know, they might just have gotten back from somewhere, or they might have had something happen to a family member, or, you know, the big one is if they're in a high-risk suicide cluster. You want to be really careful about what they're consuming then, because there is a...
That's a new phrase for me.
Oh, yeah, they know they happen.
The suicide cluster? Like what?
Basically what happens is if there is, say, a school,
right,
and a kid in a school dies by suicide, there is an increased risks among the people who know about that event to also die by suicide. This
no
is
kidding.
This is just studies. We can't avoid it. It's real, but that doesn't mean don't talk about it. Like, that's the problem. What happened is people got that information, like, oh my God, we cannot talk about this. We have to put warnings on
Close
everything.
ourselves off. No, nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't let them be exposed to that, and that's not what the data means. What the data means is, you know, we have to be aware that this is a real thing and work out accordingly.
Right.
And like this is the really dense stuff that happens with this stuff, and the particular thing about, you know, suicide in particular is that men over 40 are the highest risk group.
The chat is making me crack up, by the way. I'm gonna have to not look at the chat anymore. I get so distracted. I'm sorry.
It tends to be that way because they tend to be quite. Are they going triggered a lot?
No, it's some things that it's just funny. Just
yeah. I didn't open it at all. I probably should have, but yeah. I mean, this is a thing, and you know, there's no avoiding it. And it's like, see, this is a classic example of, it's one thing to collect data. It's another thing to interpret data without looking like a schmuck.
Right.
You know, and that is the big thing that people get wrong when dealing with these issues. Right. You know, they want to go turn it all off, because the last thing somebody wants to feel is that they were responsible for someone dying by suicide. No one wants that pressure on them. No one wants that responsibility. And so people just avoid dealing with it. They avoid discussion of it because they don't want to be liable for something else someone else does. Right. So what they actually do is make the sense of isolation worse for people with mental health issues. They increase the stigma behind mental health issues because people aren't willing to talk about it because, heaven forbid, some poor sick person might do something. And that's just dehumanizing, right?
I think that's asking a lot of us to put aside ourselves and how we act and stuff like that for the sake of a few other people, which, you know, I have a problem with that. Not to the point where, you know, if somebody actually needs help and needs me to act a certain way, that's fine. That's one thing.
Well, that's not what I'm advocating at all. That's not what I'm advocating at all. I don't think that. I think that some corporate functions should be a little bit more aware, because people have to go to work. You know, they have to do that job, whether they are feeling up to it or not. Lord knows we've all been there, right? We've all had days where we're really not feeling up to this presentation, or we got to go in and do it. When you're just sort of in the casual sphere, when you're in the sphere of entertainment, I don't think people should have to change what they do in the interests of diversity or inclusivity.
Right.
I think that people should just be, because if somebody's your friend, you're not going to want to deliberately upset them, right? In terms of entertainment, I think people choose to go see a particular movie. Nobody's forced to see a movie or play a game. And that's why I don't think people should necessarily be changing the content of games. I just think they should be clearly labeled in advance so that people who want to avoid certain types of content can. To me, that's going to lead to the most open, artistic, happy medium, as opposed to, because it's sort of that middle ground between, the horseshoe club again. You've got the authoritarianism, let it all go and fuck them on the one side, and the put it all down because we must offend no one on the other. Both of those aren't human, right? So, like, that to me is a thing we really should be talking about in games, because I admit it, I don't like seeing the big, bold trigger warning at the beginning of an article or a video, because I feel like that's talking down to me. I feel it's a massive
I don't know what I've just come back to, but that is
we're
quite
talking
amusing.
we're talking about trigger warnings and sort of the purpose of them, but we're sort of talking about how it's not so much being considerate of the fact that some content might be having a bad effect on people in some situations. It's the condescending way in which they're handled under the current paradigm that may be the source of everyone's...
How long is it going to be until trigger warnings themselves are triggering?
Well, some people say they are. But that's the thing, like, that's what I was saying. It's one thing to just put a little thing in, the same font, just sort of in bracket. The same way, we want disclosure now. We want potential, things that the audience should keep in mind, relationships, financial backing, whatever, to be disclosed. I think it's the same thing. It doesn't have to be danger, 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 destruction in 30 seconds. We don't have to go that far. It can be there. It can... give people the information they need without the theatrics.
I think there's a difference here between content warning and trigger warning. Content warning says, hey, this contains this, view at your own discretion. Trigger warning says you better not say or do this.
You really think so? Because that's...
I think
if that's
so.
the way it's being applied, that is a misapplication, because one of the things that mental health advocates...
I'm going off the Tumblr. The Tumblr,
sure.
like what I've seen on Tumblr. And that's the only place I've ever really seen it, though.
I am absolutely not saying you're wrong. I'm saying this is if people are doing this, it's a misapplication of the entire damn concept. Because the thing they say about disability advocacy is you never, ever, ever tell a disabled person what they should or should not do.
Right.
It's dehumanizing. It's violating the dignity of risk principle. If they want to go in and try it anyway, good for them. That's what you want to encourage, right? You should never be using a content warning or a trigger warning or whatever the hell you want to call it to discourage someone from viewing content. You are simply advising them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not the same thing at all, and perhaps the word warning is, but to me that's no different than, you go on a ride at an amusement park and it's got all the horrible neck breaks and, heart attacks and pacemakers and all that stuff.
Right.
They have to do it by law.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and that isn't seen as discouraging someone from riding. It's, hey, be advised that you're going to get jerked around a lot, so if you have a neck condition, maybe this isn't the best idea. Decide for yourself.
Right. I might be taking these two different types of way, the phrasing of the same thing, but kind of applying the background of where I saw them to the phrases itself.
Well, I think that's
and I've
important.
noticed on Tumblr especially, where a lot of these snowflakes rest. It's
don't judge anything by Tumblr.
Well, I mean, let's face facts. I mean, this is where they live. A lot of them at least.
Well, this is where they live unchallenged.
Yeah.
That's where they like to go, is where they are unchallenged. And if they can't go where they're unchallenged, they'll do their best to make it unchallenging by turning off their comments and disabling their likes and dislikes.
And what a rotten way to live.
Exactly. But for me, I've noticed this especially on Tumblr. And I don't know if any of you guys subscribe to a subreddit called Tumblr in Action. It's one of my favorites.
I don't. I can imagine it's amazing though.
Oh, you will love it. You will absolutely. If you are looking for content for your This Week in Stupid,
That's basically the lolcow farm,
Head
right? Like
there,
they
buddy.
put the
I
really
actually-
stupid stuff up.
I've got a rule that I don't get stuff off Tumblr for it because, well, where would it end? You know.
exactly. That you're not wrong. You're not wrong on that. But I can tell you, a lot of the stuff that I see from these people is it's my way or the highway. If you don't do as I tell you to, you are A, Z, B, C, D. It doesn't matter. You're just a horrible person. You are all these names that I'm going to call you, and that's kind of where I kind of take the trigger warning meaning. If you do not, or if you manage to put this into your article and it offends me, I'm going to get mad at you, and you should have put a trigger warning on that. Well, I didn't know biscuits would piss you off. Like, what the hell?
Well, that's the
It's
thing,
also
right?
subjective, isn't it?
That's
so
the
subjective.
approach. I mean, I
and-
had somebody get mad at me on Twitter earlier on in this stream because he accused me of equating Gamergate with the gay struggle. And I'm like, well, if and don't do it. This person said, don't do it unless I'm gay, or unless I'm queer, because queer is a big catch-all term. And I just responded to him, don't assume to know what I am.
It's funny that someone came at me about the whole trans thing and said you shouldn't judge people by their gender and stuff like that. And then I basically saying everything that Gamergate has complained about, not your shield.
Yeah.
And so I fired that back at him, and so obviously
any discussion like that about not your shield just makes me very, very sad now, because people just, it's confirmation bias, right? People gaze at that and talk about gaze theory, right? Talk about framing, talk about cutting out information and dehumanizing people because you want to get a certain, pleasurable response, even if that pleasure is outrage. It really, it bothers me on a really deep level, and I haven't quite figured out why the reaction to not your shield.
or the not reaction at all.
I mean, the very idea that they are going to dehumanize minorities, transsexual, gay, or queer people, the very idea, just because they don't fit their agenda, it's monstrous. It's such a ridiculously horrible thing. It's almost a parody of itself, when they're like, yeah, we're diverse, we support gays and trans and all this sort of stuff. It's like, but you are just, oh my God, you're just such awful people.
Yeah.
So fucking awful. It really does my head in. They're just such bad people.
Yeah,
it's
it's not what you say or what you do. It's who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's whose side you're on. If you're
Exactly.
on their side, everything.
I just default to Catwoman on that one. In Batman Returns, I'm on the side I'm always on, mine.
So the int side. Yeah.
The ent side, yeah. Like, it's just, what is this sides thing? Like, the thing that bothers me about
Both
the whole
Catwoman and the
sides
Ents ended
thing,
up helping the good guy in the end.
there we go. But, what bothers me so much about this whole thing is sides, and you must be either pro or anti. When did we sign over our free thought rights to a consortium of whatever? Like, why can't we go, I haven't made up my mind yet, I'm still deciding, and I don't know if I ever will decide.
Because they have a narrative to push, and if you're not already part of that narrative, then you are the problem. It's absolutism. It's all or nothing. You're either with them or you're against them, and they're the ones who make it that way. I mean, this is the thing when people are going on about Angry Joe. I'm like, let him be neutral. Let him be neutral. That's fine for us. That's absolutely fine.
Absolutely, it is.
Because then when we say, hey Joe, we're concerned that there's an ethical violation at, say, this, Kotaku with these people, and the latest one, the shirt thing, the Gamergate is hate shirt, where it happens that Leigh Alexander's pushing it, and it happens to be
It's actually a shirt?
Oh, I saw that, and I honestly thought it was a joke from our side.
It's so ridiculous, It's ridiculous. But the thing is, the fact that I'll find the Kotaku in action thing at some point, because I can't remember. Hang on, I'll just grab it so we can. I haven't double checked this, so I can't say that, I can't confirm it. But what is being said on this Kotaku in Action thread is, Code Liberation, who take $5 for each Gamergate is Hate t-shirt, are friends with and promoted by Leigh Alexander. Does she reveal this? Does she fuck? So yeah, but it's literally, you know, everything that we're saying in Gamergate. They're literally doing it all. They do this all the fucking time.
Yeah.
You know, and this is just another example. It's like Anita Sarkeesian on her Steam curators list. She's got Crypt of the Necrodancer, which was heavily advised by Silverstring Media, who Anita Sarkeesian is a consultant for.
Oh dear.
And it's just like, where does it end? Where does this fucking end? You know what I mean?
Always.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I think it's hilarious that they're introducing a shirt that is causing division in gaming.
Yeah.
Does nobody see the parallels here?
Well, my question is, where does it all end? You know, and I know nobody has an answer. It's just sort of that hypothetical thing of when do we all get our freaking lives back from this monster? And I mean, just go back to talking about games the way, I mean, I think the great thing about this stream is we talked about games, and yeah, we sort of talked about the issues that, you know, intersect with Gamergate, but it was in the context of games, and we spent a lot of time where the word Gamergate never came up.
Well, here's the thing, and you say, when will this end?
Yeah.
Now it won't. The cancer has entered the body now, and the Gamergate. Even if the Gamergate hashtag dies off and no one mentions Gamergate for years, the spirit of Gamergate is going to continue and should continue to live on and on and on, because somebody has to watch. There is always going to be somebody who wants to inject their agenda and inject their narrative, and it's always going to be the role of the people who actually do it, the people who love the subject, to come in and say no.
Yeah, and that seems like such a simple concept. And I don't know why. I mean, it's the same way I sort of felt about the Tea Party in the U.S. is that, you know, I sit back as a Canadian and I'm completely befuddled by it. But, you know, it's like, why does it become a paradigm of good versus evil as opposed to different ideas?
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I'd love to see that sort of come back, that people can disagree without being labeled evil, you know.
That's actually interesting. That actually brings us back to Bob Chipman. I'm just going to read out a few tweets from Bob Chipman, and he sounds like a paranoid conspiracy theorist. So he says, the defining game series of the last/current generation is a pro-war, right-wing neocon wankfest. Obviously, he's talking about Call of Duty. Years later, and again, I don't think Call of Duty is the defining game series of the last generation.
Gaming's so big. Can we say there's a defining game series?
Exactly.
Yeah,
There is. I mean, I've never played a Call of Duty game.
Point.
I've got no interest in playing a Call of Duty game. It defines nothing for me, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he says, years later, right-wing lunatics start slithering into the games press, feigning nerd cred to spread.
I'm coming to get you.
No, feigning nerd cred to spread their poisonous, hate-based ideology to a new generation. Gee, who could have predicted that? Who could have possibly seen this coming? How much Call of Duty have you played, mate?
Me, in particular?
Yeah.
I did play the last one, and I returned it a week later.
Really?
I've played enough Call of Duty to know that I really don't see it as right-wing.
Are you a neocon? Are you?
I must be, because obviously the games are extremely.
I'm a neocon if they need me to be. That's
that's the thing. You're everything they need you to be.
Exactly.
But like, I see Call of Duty as somebody who, you know, I don't play a lot of the game. I go in, I get bored in about an hour and a half, and I go back to things where people aren't wearing very much. I mean, those are the games I like. But
Don't apologize for anything, mate.
Yeah, what I get out of Call of Duty is sort of, what I like is how multicultural it is, and how they're like, look, stuff happens in places that aren't America, and there are soldiers in other militaries around the world that aren't America. And I would think that that global approach would sit quite well with other leftists, because that's the element of the narrative I actually liked about it.
Oh, and let me interject this real fast.
Didn't you? Sorry, that's okay.
No, this is something that I really want to make sure everyone knows. I'm not there at the Escapist to write politics.
No.
I came to The Escapist to write video games, which is exactly what The Escapist is all about right now.
Yep.
Leaving politics behind and putting the video games and the nerd culture up front and foremost. We don't care about your politics. We don't care about your gender studies. We don't care about blah, blah, blah. This is just about our hobby and what we love. Now, if you do want to see my writing, you can go to everyjoe.com. That's fine. There I am writing politics.
Is it so hard? Is it so hard to keep your politics from the games that you're making? Is it so difficult? You know?
Exactly. It's not. It's not. Here, I've worked in politics for years, but I mean, man, when I'm talking politics, or even just something like completely innocuous like my dog, I don't want to talk about or equate politics with my dog or my favorite hobby or my car. I just like them, you know?
Yeah. No, totally. Totally.
And I think there's a difference between informing your perspective and being consumed by your perspective. Like, that's the big thing for me, right? This idea that, it's going to color everything. I mean, I would like to see some right-wing game criticism. I mean, what's that Christian gaming service?
The Christian gaming site that has like a video game review and
First Politics or something.
Yeah.
Gaming or something. Christ Center Gaming.
That's one. And it's like fairly objective, and then they have like a Christian rating, which is just separate, and it's just like, well, what's wrong with that? There is nothing wrong with that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of go, it got like a 0 in sexuality. I might like this game, you know?
Well, coming from a Christian household, I mean, my grandmother would have loved that when buying something for her grandchildren, you know?
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And let her have it.
It's consumer information, and if they want to approach games from that perspective, why the hell not?
Yeah,
you know,
if there's a market for it, you know.
Like, why can't we have the UN? I mean, I kind of, the thing I always liked about The Escapist, you had a guy like Yahtzee, and then you had, the other personalities, and you had a guy like, Movie Bob, and they were very different. And I didn't have to read every columnist, the same way I don't read every columnist at the New York Times. But I liked the fact that I was coming into a place where it wasn't just the right kind of gamer, it was all kinds of gamers. And I mean, I'm just speaking for myself here, I'm not speaking for the website. But this is me talking as a fan, you know. The only reason I wrote for the other services is The Escapist kept rejecting my stuff up until kind of recently. So I guess I leveled up. That means something very different involving women in gaming to most people, but I'm taking it back. This is what leveling up is to me.
You didn't drive a woman out of gaming then?
I find that episode, I was laughing my butt off over the whole Law and Order thing.
Before we get to that, I just want to, literally, Bob's going to take us there.
Excellent.
There's nothing about Bob Chipman that isn't hilariously ironic, right? Just before we get there. Imagine if Bob Chipman had said, years later, left-wing lunatics start slithering into the games press, feigning nerd cred to spread their poisonous, hate-based ideology to a new generation. How accurate would he be if he had said that? That is exactly what these progressive lefts, these progressive journalists have done. They've slithered in and said, we're not gamers. Gamers are fucking nerds who need to be bullied or something. And it's a poisonous hate-based ideology. There's no doubt about it. Everything that they say is projection. And so when Bob says, no gamer who is not also a gator should be offended by that SVU episode because it was not about them. It was our version. It's just, what are you talking about, Bob?
I was offended by the terrible
level of
writing.
self-awareness. The level of self-awareness is so low.
And then he ends it by going, and if you are a gator, I'm glad you were offended, because you're almost certainly an asshole. And it's
wasn't Anita Sarkeesian terribly upset about the SVU episode? Like, I thought I saw a tweet of hers where she was not pleased at all.
Yeah. Yeah, she was like, don't use my life as your entertainment thing. I don't know.
And I totally agree with her there, because let's face it, they really didn't. That episode was slapped together.
It really was.
It really
hilarious.
Like
my completely non-gamer friend, he messaged me on Facebook, and he's like, I'm in the middle of this SVU episode. I was like, what do you think? And he goes, it's something.
Yeah. I was sitting there going, oh my God, is this how African American people feel every week watching crime shows? You know, like it's just some weird cartoonist bastardization of their reality. Like it's changed the way I watch procedurals. I will admit that, because I'm like, is it? I used to really like that show. I really like Mariska Hargitay as an actress. I really like Ice-T, but now I'm like, is it always that hackneyed and I just didn't see it because I wasn't involved in the issue?
I did read on Kotaku that was the case, though.
That it was. It's always been that bad. Oh, right. Better than Civ 5. Oh, I almost missed the reference. Do you notice like the terrifying terrorist masks look like Katy Perry's Left Shark?
I can't believe how much like ISIS it was. I'm very impressed. I mean,
they really mocked it up to look the exact same.
But what I just find it incredible. It's like, do you honestly think that there are gamer terrorists who are so concerned about women playing video games? I mean, I can understand ISIS. You know, they're gonna die, but they're gonna get to heaven. Mm-hmm. They're gonna live in paradise with
virgins.
Exactly. You know, it's religious ordinances. You know, it's a religious duty. Okay, fine. I can understand that. It makes sense. A bunch of fucking gamers talking about PlayStations and Xboxes are not going to be like Game On New York Police Department. What are they looking for? Martyrdom.
Videos one time actually that kind of really struck me, and it was the fact that when somebody really believes in something that hardcore, they can only view everything through that lens. And I think that's exactly what's coming. You know, like they really do consider us terrorists, so that's how they stack us.
I'd go a little bit more insidious. I don't think anybody believes the most gamers are terrorists or most techie people are terrorists. I think it's this benevolently sexist attitude that we must protect the women's just in case.
Right, and it kind of comes also from that whole, you know, by any means necessary thing. So they'll portray us that way because they feel like they have to or they need to in order for their message to get across.
But I mean, what was the message? Ladies don't go into video games?
No,
that's one of them.
No, the message. They kind of got themselves mixed up because, like all people who are outside gaming, they don't really know what to do with it, and so they were like, you can't tell the difference between reality and a game. And it's like, oh, come on, come the fuck on. Like, that was like a meme in crime TV programs like 10 years ago.
And it's like an
before
NRA.
Jack Thompson, and it was crazy then.
It's like an NRA narrative. Now. You know, it's an NRA narrative. It's like, look at the video games. They cause this. No.
It's something people don't understand, and because there is not, I'm going to sound a bit tinfoil hatty here, because we don't have an equivalent to the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America. Some people are afraid about the Wild West quality, the self-regulating quality of the video game industry. And I mean, that's what Jack Thompson railed against. That's what, you know, everybody's like, we must regulate for, you know, mental hygiene. It's you know, the Reefer Madness comparisons are not inaccurate, because it's so funny to me that people would line up, and I shouldn't be surprised, I've seen this happen way too much, to willingly give up a freedom, even a tiny one. You know, because gaming's not a right, gaming's a freedom. But just because something's not a right doesn't mean it's not precious. You know, and I think that we all have to be very, very wary of giving up any sort of freedom to think for ourselves or choose for ourselves.
You're tickling my libertarian sensibilities right now.
Well, I'm not. You're welcome. Remember, you know, I'm here to please, right? Escapist bimbo. No longer polygon shield. Now escapist bimbo. Only wrote one thing ever.
I feel like Liz got some serious blowback in that regard too, and poor Liz, you know, she
you know,
to me.
I can't even be rational about some of the things they said about her.
Well, think about I'm her boyfriend. I mean, how do you think I feel?
What did she say? What happened? What happened?
Well,
just
you know,
so people listening now.
Aside from, you know, the usual attacks on her being an MRA, which is completely unfounded, she wrote a blog post once, and an MRA website actually posted her post,
which she can't control.
He can't control that.
I get the same thing with my videos, so just so you know.
But a lot of people got mad at her because she doesn't have any journalism experience. You know, that is true. What she does have is a beautiful ability to write. She's an amazing writer. despite her journalism and experience, she writes, like, I've seen some of the stuff that she's going to post on The Escapist already, and you guys are in for a
Awesome.
treat.
Oh,
You guys are in
sweet.
for a treat.
See,
'Cause what she's doing is she's covering retro games.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, it's
right,
really
right.
fun.
Because Zelda's her thing, right?
Right, and she loves it, and so she's writing about this stuff, and she doesn't need journalism experience to write about that. All she has to do is to give you her thoughts, which are always beautifully put on a piece of paper, and give it to you, and you can revel in your nostalgia with her.
Yeah,
but a lot
Liz,
of people,
Liz, what Liz has to offer is the light side, the Jedi side of the personal is political, right? She has been through more shit in her life than 4 people have gone through. And that makes her an exceptionally valid voice, especially when it comes to, diversity in games. How do we incorporate people who aren't anywhere even near the spectrum of the stereotype of the gamer, who are obviously going to think differently about games as a result? And I think Liz's sort of unaligned status is really important, and I'm really looking forward to what she has to read, because I do support, when done thoughtfully, the personal's political concept, and I think it'll be great to see someone use it in the way it was intended, as opposed to this sort of metastasized first-person storytelling that we see among the Tumblrinas.
And I love
I'm not even sure that it's really possible for it not to become that. So I'm actually of the opinion to keep personal stuff personal and political stuff political. That's how I would like things to be done. But it's a different discussion. No, I'm not saying that you're wrong. It's more personal preference,
Well, for what the personal is political basically means, it's a different terminology for politics than we understand it now. It's basically private space versus public space. It's actually a bad choice of words for what the concept is supposed to mean. It's a better way of putting it is what a gent I used to work for, his name is Moses Neimer, said. He says, media is about what happened to me today. And that was his guiding philosophy of media. And that's when I think it's important for someone to come forward and go, I have this experience, and this isn't something I've seen talked about, because, I mean, we've said a lot in this stream, like, hey, I wasn't alone. And that's what it does, and that can get somebody else thinking. I mean, I thought the thing Liz wrote about why she got involved in Gamergate was just, it wasn't just well written, it was important writing.
Yeah, it was touching, and she.
I think there's a place for it, but that was rhetoric rather than journalism,
Yeah.
Oh, but she's writing op-ed.
Oh no, absolutely. I'm not suggesting that. Sorry, I wasn't saying that at The Escapist she, or anything like that.
No, but you're absolutely right, and that's why they hired her and me, right? Because we're not doing the same thing. It's not. Oh, look, Token Girl happens to be redhead. She's being hired to do a radically different job than I am. And that's the thing, when people compare our similarities, they're not sort of saying, no, it wasn't 2 square pegs and 2 square holes. It was a square peg and a round peg, because there's a square peg and a round, there's a square hole and a round hole. People focused on the physical similarities between us and didn't look at the radically different life experiences that make both of us a good fit. I
mean, they're going to try to put you, and that's what they do, I think, on the other side of everything here, is they try to put people in boxes and organize them in neat little boxes.
And I own my box. So...
And you cannot have an individual box.
Labels are the very bread and butter of identity politics.
Exactly.
If you can't label someone, you can't attack them.
Yeah.
Going for beer number 2. Be right back.
All right, I actually have to jet soon, guys.
That's all right. I actually should hear as well. So.
Yeah, but I just this is the sort of thing I want to get back to. I mean, there was a time when I'd go to game events, and I'm talking 8 to 10 years ago, okay, just to put it in perspective, and I would actually have people feel like it was appropriate to say to my face, "You're a girl. What do you know?" You know, I actually had somebody, this is possibly one of the stupidest things anybody's ever said to me, that hardcore role-playing games, computer role-playing games, are girl games. And I'm like, statistics say you're wrong. The player base on
that's a very strange opinion to have.
It's ridiculous, right? But their experience was all the women in their circle, because there's a lot of female role-playing games enthusiasts in Toronto. There's like this hive of us. I think possibly because Canada is a producer of video games. Mm-hmm. We're more sort of, we have more than average number of women who are hardcore gamers. But you know, that used to happen. That, you know, sit down, shut up, you should be happy just to be here sort of thing did used to happen. I used to get asked all the time, are you marketing? So I started dressing in the most absurd, like, I started dressing like a video game character because people thought I was a booth babe and not marketing, which was actually a step up, you know, because it was more colorful and people respond to you on a different paradigm. But because the idea is, oh, marketing person, not really gamer. Booth babe, people want the sameness, but it's funny. Like, I've seen it become more okay, and all it took was time, right? Like, all it took was time, and you know, for better or for worse, some of the people who are saying incredibly stupid things now were a part of that. I mean, you know, there's that classic David Jaffe moment where he's like, you know, Leia Alexander, I can't stand that woman, but she's got something important to say, and she freaked out, completely missed the point of what he was saying.
I tell you what, David Jaffe, I think he's a bit of a badass. I like that guy.
I like him. I
like him a lot. You know,
he's that lovely kind of smart dumb. That he's a very smart guy. He's a very him and Cliff Bleszinski are very similar. If you actually talk to them, like as people behind closed doors, when they're not putting it on for the rubes, right? They're very thoughtful, very artistic, very, you know, emotionally in tune people. But they get out
even
there.
In public, he doesn't seem to give a fuck. I love it.
No, but he knows what the show is that people are coming to see, and nobody's coming to a gaming event to take an academic course. People are coming to games to game, and so there has to be a bit of that gamers, fuck yeah, thing going on. You know, because let's face it, it is empowering. It is power fantasy, and there's nothing wrong with it, because most of our lives are shitty. You know, and I mean that you hear that a lot. My life is shitty. I enjoy. Our lives
all shitty
parts. You know, there were so many times that I mean, the thing I like about Assassin's Creed is I can go, I'm mad at somebody, I stab you in the face, but it's elegant. But I'm still stabbing dudes in the face. But look, a puffy shirt. You know, I'll cop to that because there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's
just a game.
But you know what? It's also common myths, and because you know, English literature degree, studied a lot of freaking myths. They were all incredibly bawdy. There was a lot of sex, a lot of violence in them. And God, you read the Canterbury Tales; it's full of fart jokes. That was an eye-opener to me at university. I was like, what?
You know what? I never thought about that. I never thought.
I'm paying to go to school to read burning fart jokes.
Basically.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is awesome! And I think that was one of the
I spent the other day in my Texas government class learning where to get lube.
Really?
True story.
For what? Body cavity searches of Mexicans? Like...
if that's where you want to go with that, sure.
That was intentionally offensive. I will cop to that. I'm getting a little goofy now.
There's nothing offensive about wanting to cavity search a Mexican if that's what you're into.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Yeah,
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
There's a perfect example of
pejorative in any of that statement. You know? I imagine there are plenty of fucking, you know, border patrolmen who have cavity searched many a Mexican. There's nothing pejorative about that. That's probably a statement of fact.
We're equating two things that should not be equated, but it's obviously, you know, black humor.
Yeah.
As in dark, not as in.
Okay.
Jesus Christ, yes. You
Same.
cannot say
I'm
anything.
getting
you
you
know?
guys in trouble now. This is the evil ginger
I'm
coming
already
out.
in trouble. What the
I'm
hell do I care
loosening you
now?
up, and now I'm going to steal your souls through the
I-
internet, because we can do that.
I've had a blizzard of Tumblrites of special snowflakes for the past 3 days. Now I'm just so desensitized to it.
You do get punchy, and I have to really watch myself, because some of the things I've said when I was punchy, and I never thought, because in context, it's so drivelly. Like when you live tweet press conferences, like, holy crap, you snark,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
I had to, when people actually started reading the shit I was saying, and then retroactively went back and read every tweet I ever wrote, some stuff, not in the context of that moment, looked not so great. Like it wasn't presented in the context it was intended to.
Well, like, yeah, no, I mean, the tweet that everyone's going around with me is the same thing.
Yeah.
My tweet was about, it wasn't even about really trans people's identity, and it was about free speech and the way that they try to force us to use these pronouns, and if we don't use these pronouns, not only are we transphobic and homophobic and all this stuff, we are to face social consequences.
What, because you need some time to catch up?
Well, it's one of those. Okay, look, let's say this.
Right.
Two guys come up to me named Xavier. All right.
Is
And
one an
of them-
X-Men?
Yes, they're both.
Okay.
They're both X-Men.
Oh, sweet.
And Xavier number one says, "Hey man, my name's Xavier, but I would really like it if you'd call me Scooter. You don't have to, but hey, if you want to, that'd be great. It really would please me. Scooter seems like a cool guy, so guess what? He gets a new nickname, Scooter. I'm going to call you Scooter. Now, if Xavier number two comes up to me and says, you better call me Scooter, or else you're a scooter phobe. And, I'm going to make sure that your boss knows you're a scooter phobe, and I'm going to try to get you. I'm going to laugh in your fucking face. You don't tell me what to do. You don't tell other people what to do. I'm okay. I'm okay with pronouns. I'm okay with everything like that, and that's something that people need to understand. I have nothing against transgendered people. That's not my thing. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. I don't personally have to believe what you believe. All right? I don't. It doesn't mean I hate you. It doesn't mean I think any less of you. We just have different. We just disagree.
Right.
And I'll be happy to call you whatever you want to, but don't come up to me and talk to me like condescend to me and tell me that I'm going to face consequences if I don't call you what you want me to call you. That's not cool to do, people.
Well, and what practically does that solve? All that does is sort of push you away from the understanding they would like by opposition, because you've had a bad
Exactly.
experience, right?
Exactly.
I mean, when we used to do, white ribbon stuff and early AIDS activism in the 90s, it was very much, talk about the individual instance, the individual statement, the individual behavior. Don't attack the person.
Right.
And it really saddens me to see everything end up in that horseshoe club, right? And part of that is we are in a period of very, very rapid social progress.
Right.
Which is very exciting, but
I
this
don't know if
is
I'd call it progress. I'm happy to call
Yeah,
it
I think so too.
change. Is more
Here's something that I
preferable.
think we all need to do, though. We need to start dealing with people on an individual by individual basis. Not everyone goes into boxes. All right.
This is something. Sorry, just say this is so important. Individualism over collectivism.
Yes.
Sorry. It is just so damn important.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
the problems are stemming from these
No,
collective labels.
I'm right. Yeah, and I'm right wing. I'm right wing, but I don't agree with everything the right wing says. I mean, if you put me and a Republican into the same room, we're probably going to be at each other's throats within a few minutes. And it's being right wing doesn't necessarily mean that I fall in with the stereotypical right wing guy. Just like being gay doesn't mean you typically fall in with the stereotypical gay guy. Being a woman, same thing. There's individual by individual. Everyone here is different, and we need to respect that fact.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't.
that again is actually diversity, isn't it? It's,
Well,
That is real
there's
diversity.
yeah, actual
It's
diversity.
real diversity.
There's a glorious book, I don't know if you guys have read it, it's called The Righteous Mind, by an author named Jonathan Haidt. He actually got lured away to teach corporate ethics instead of religious political analysis. I guess there's a lot more money in business ethics or a much greater need. But he compiled some very compelling evidence that says that people are, to an extent, somewhat hardwired in their political affiliations based on the pillars through which they view and judge the world.
Right.
And that's a very interesting bit of research, and it's really, really solid research, right? Like, this stuff was peer-reviewed. He's not, you know, one of these talk show pundits. He's actually accredited institutions and all that jazz.
Mhm.
But he's, of course, been called an apologist for both sides, because he's saying that the major difference between liberals and conservatives is conservatives have additional elements that get factored into their judgments. Things like community and discussed paradigms and things like that. Sanctity principles that you see much more strongly in American conservatives than you do in... no, it's global, because he went to India. That's right, in the book. But you see it more in conservative thinkers than liberal thinkers. And this is very interesting, because if people are hardwired to take a political position, well, what does that say about calling them evil? They were born that way. They can't help that any more than any other identifier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And then, of course, it all comes down to what you do with that affiliation. Like, if you use, you know, like the people behind the subprime mortgage bust, that was just, it doesn't matter what end of the political spectrum you're on, that was unconscionable. That was just irresponsible, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That wasn't a political issue. That was a
right.
Yeah.
Right. Corruption is corruption, no matter what stripe it's a part of. I mean, we can't keep track of our scandals up here in Canada, because, you know, on the one hand, the NDP, which is the left-wing party, was doing funny business with their local offices versus their federal offices, and the difference is one gets taxpayer money, one doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to repay a whole bunch of stuff, but the conservatives got their hands caught in the cookie jar, and it's funny, our Liberal Party is our centrist party. And this is why, yeah, this is why Canadians kind of go, let's just chill, drink a beer, and smoke a blunt when it comes to politics, because our centrist party is called the Liberals. The left-wing party is called the New Democratic Party, NDP. And we just go, it's all screwed, because it's all, we started with the two-party system, the Tories and the Whigs, and you know, the Socialist Party, which is essentially what the NDP is. The Socialist Party came into it with, you know, the unions in certain times, and they're the ones that actually brought in, you know, federal health care and all this stuff. But so our Liberal Party became the centrist party, and if you've seen any pictures of, you know, the sort of guy who looks like he should be in a boy band, prime ministerial candidate we've got here, he's the leader of the Liberal Party, but he's a centrist. You know, it's very like he's pro oil pipeline, but only under certain conditions, but he's very much about diversity and all that stuff as well. So I think part of the thing about countries with a three-party system is that we do see a moderate perspective as a legitimate political position, as opposed to just an inability to make up our minds. And that, you know, that I find really important in terms of examining the lenses people come at things by.
Yeah. Yeah, I think these days, honestly, I mean, I don't mean to get into politics, but I think a lot of people are becoming very disillusioned by the concept of party democracy.
Couldn't agree more.
And the thing is, if it's a product of its time, that's the thing. You know, 200-300 years ago, when communications were not nearly as advanced as they are now, then it's no surprise that you would need a group of people with affiliations who you would be more or less all on the same page with to vote for, you know, and that's fine. But these days, with the advent of the internet, I think we can pretty much do away with parties and just vote for individuals for posts. So the best person for that job, you know.
It's something that I've thought about too, actually, because we could
I really
exactly
think
what you just
we could do it.
And you know, yeah, because now all of a sudden, you know, people aren't going to have to talk at us with the internet they talk with us now.
Yeah.
They can, we can reach them instantly. There is no having to go through doors and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
I would love
theory.
to see something like that. And I hate to say, like, well, let's go ahead and do something along the lines of a like an American. Oh God, why am I brain farting right now?
Don't worry about it. Go on.
You need another beer.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. I've only had one.
You know,
America's Got Talent are kind of like American Idol type voting system where we all.
Yeah.
vote.
Oh God.
I think that would suck. I think.
I think there's an awful lot of loyalty to parties.
Yes, there is.
That tends to override the issues, which really bothers me.
Yeah.
Well, what it actually comes down to is you give the average person unlimited choice, they lock up. You need to limit the choice. Or it's Apple's entire product strategy. No more than 5 choices in any given year. Because people cannot, they've done studies. Dan Ariely, who's a researcher at, I don't remember if it's Duke or MIT, he has done studies about the fact that confronted with too many choices, people refuse to make a choice at all, and they consider that a choice.
Yeah.
No, I'm aware of that. I think that if you were going to do it, you'd have some sort of tier system where you I don't know, you just have like the internet, a government, the government site, where you'd go through tiers until it was, and so you would kind of like the hot page, I guess, for certain websites, But I mean, I'm sure it's a method that would have its own.
I would have like a third party or something like a third party company or something like that. Institute some kind of voting system that allows you to actually place the vote, and then that vote is counted from that third party. It's not instituted by the government. Being a libertarian, I don't trust the government with much. They can't even run a website properly, revolving people's health care.
Sorry, Egon.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Who do you trust to do it? That's the question. Do I trust the third-party company? Well, I don't trust them not to get bought off. So,
Some of that would have to be worked out.
No, not really.
I think a lot of these questions, though, like, they're going to be answered in the future. I think the free market is going to, in the future, really open up some doors that previously that we thought impossible. I mean, look at how far we've come in just 100 years. If you ask somebody 200 years ago, hey man, would you like to fly through the air and get from one place to another across the nation in a matter of hours? They'd probably look at you and, I don't know, burn you as a witch or something.
That was pretty much the Sleepy Hollow season finale. What you just described is the lieutenant goes back in time, and so of course she's a mouthy black woman in revolutionary America. That did not go so well.
Yeah.
But they talked about, I suppose you have carriages that just fly us from place to place. And she goes, only for long distance.
Yeah.
And
it's
then
awesome.
he has to figure out how to work a cell phone.
Nice.
And when it says slide to unlock, he slides it across the table, and it's like that's exactly what someone from that time period would do, and that was only 200 years ago.
But just think of 100 years from now with the our technology progressing as fast as it is. I can only imagine what we're going to come up with, especially, and it's going to affect our government. Let's face facts. Everything that we do, especially big, huge technological leaps and bounds, they all affect the way that we live, and it affects the way that we govern.
Well, I think the thing that it's affecting us up here is all government correspondence is true. And there was actually a huge scandal provincially here because the government destroyed a digital paper trail on an issue because it was inconvenient, and it
happened down
became
here
a criminal
America.
investigation. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's already changing government.
Okay, guys, I think we're gonna have to wrap up there because it's getting quite late here. But,
yeah, I'd imagine. What time is it there?
20 to 12, and I'm probably going to be.
Late.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's not. It's later when you've got a 5-day-old child.
Mazel tov, though, man.
Yeah,
That's
seriously,
great.
congratulations, buddy.
Cheers, man. Cheers, guys. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
He looks like a cross between Winston Churchill and Mr. Burns.
Good man.
He's got the Winston Churchill. He's got the Winston Churchill chubby cheeks and sort of steely-eyed gaze, but he holds his hands in the sort of Mr. Burns position, and he's quite slim.
Yeah, that's how
that's
I know you're going to be a good parent, because you don't feel the need to bullshit that your child is the most perfect creation ever under God.
He's adorable beyond all reason,
Yeah.
but he's hilarious. He's great. You know, he's wonderful.
That's fabulous. Enjoy.
Jason, you're not at the ready to give him back point yet.
Oh no, not at all, not at all.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, thanks a lot for coming on, guys, and seriously, all
Thank
the
you.
best with the Escapists.
Thank you, man.
You know,
Yeah.
thank God for the fucking Escapists, man. I tell you,
Yeah, absolutely, man. They are changing everything, and thank you for having me on, man. I'm a huge fan of yours. I've been for some time.
My
It's
pleasure.
an honor.
I'm going to see if I can get Archon on at some point as well, because I'd like to talk to him.
Yeah, he's a good guy,
Yeah, he seems like it, and he seems informed. So
and he's very intelligent. Like,
Crazy smart. One of the early conversations I had with him was on Aristotelian philosophy.
Really.
yeah, he's intimidating. He's intimidatingly smart.
And then it turned into Dungeons and Dragons.
Awesome. That's
And
really,
that was
really
it was bonding. You know, it's he's great. The Escape. I mean Josh, the EIC of the Escapist is a great dude too.
Vanderwall, yeah.
Yeah, he's just a ray of sunshine every time he sends an email. So, you know, they're good people, and that's the thing. Like, content aside, they're good people. And despite
really cool.
what anybody says, I mean, Janelle's awesome too over at Gamefront, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just real. They're really, really real people.
Well,
We're secret Nazis.
Yes. Yeah, I'd be hanging around Nazis. That's gonna happen.
yeah.
Thanks again, man.
Not a problem. Just for you guys, I've got to read out some quotes from the chat. Just to get them, kill all Jews, Sargon 2015. So that is now an official quote. What?
I'm still here, bitches.
Yeah.
I still have a job.
Fuck party. Restart slavery. Yeah, no, definitely. I'm definitely up with that.
Let's do that. Yeah. especially redheaded Jews. I think that'd be great.
No, see.
You're already wearing the outfit. I'm just saying.
You don't want to try. Oh, you made a Star Wars reference. Okay, I'm happy. I'm good with that, because we all know how that ended.
Slavery is okay if you make Star Wars references, folks.
As long as I get to choke a slimy guy at the end.
Continue, Sargon.
No, that's right. They were the ones. They were the worst ones, I think. But cool. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, everyone, and take care.
Thanks, guys.